Hey everybody, welcome to your 2026 forecast. This is going to be for each of the rising signs. Now I know I'm like 2 weeks late in this. I'm sorry. It was very difficult for me to get to sit down and think about all of this, in a more timely way. I've had a lot going on, all good stuff. But anyway, let's get into this. So 2026, this is going to be a threshold year for a lot of us. And there's going to be a lot of integrity that's exercised, a lot of very conscious direction, a lot of choice. It's a very pivotal year, and not because of the chaos, or at least the perceived chaos, but because of clarity, actually. Especially, we have Saturn and Neptune are going into Aries from Pisces once and for all. Uranus is moving into Gemini after having spent a very long stint in Taurus. Jupiter moves into Leo at the beginning of the summer. Pluto retrogrades in Aquarius, and we're going to have some discussion about that. The nodes are changing in July. Chiron is dipping into Taurus just for a little sneak-a-poo for a few months. Then he's going to dip back out and then not return again until 2027. But I do want to address what that, is likely going to be a little bit of an anticipatory snapshot for everyone for when we do have that 7-year transit coming up. Um, and really, honestly, like that, this life becomes much less about coping and more about choosing. A lot more choices involved here, right? Because we've been going through this period of what feels like, at least feels like self-erasure, where it's this understanding that we have to start doing things differently. We can't keep playing our life according to the same old rules, right? And we're moving into this space where we're more present. We're all just generally going to not only desire, but be a lot more honest and be able to exercise our choice, right? It's part of the human condition. Now, we have a lot of asteroid transits as well this particular year. And these transits together in a synthesized way really do embody, in my view, healing, contracts having to do with relationships, contracts in general, could even be with a job, but very heavily connected to like relational contracts and what devotion actually means. Like, how devoted are we to that relationship, to that job, to ourselves, right? I'm really looking at that. Now, the Chiron and Taurus transit, this is going to be a pretty core asteroid event of 2026, even though it's not going to be very, very long, right? And it will be doing this little retrograde back. But you want to just think about June 20th is going to be entering Taurus just until the middle of September. Then he's going to be going back into Aries until 2027. But the shift is going to embody these ideas connected to very Taurian things, which would be self-worth, money, and survival. How stable do we feel? How nurtured do we feel? Trusting our own bodies as well. That's very Taurian. As Taurus does, and we don't talk about this enough. Two things we don't talk about enough with Taurus, because we always connect them to the money we make from the work that we do and our sense of self and self-esteem. But he's the landlord of the second house. So, and that's the true first stop of ancestral patterning, where we start to realize that we're different from the people that we were raised with. It's like, these are my ideas. This is my hand. This is my nose, not my mother's nose. These are my ideas, not my mother's ideas, not my father's ideas, my ideas. And even ancestral though, like even beyond our parents, grandparents, and so forth. And we start to really look at these things when we have, a profound transit that goes through it. We really start looking at how we were raised, where our thought process has been established, and where we might need to tweak things in order to just feel better within ourselves, living our own life, right? In that way. Also, through another lens, Taurus is very connected to our inner health, right? Aries, which is the sign that precedes Taurus, is very connected to our outer physical body, right? Our physical appearance, the physical affect that we project to people, right? That personality that they first meet until they get to really know us on the level of our sun and or our moon energy. So that's Aries. So Taurus though goes deeper. Taurus does rule food, so we might be, depending, there might be a switch up in how you eat. And Taurus rules the mouth. Taurus rules the thyroid. Taurus rules, and with Chiron going in there, especially for those of you who are maybe like Aries risings, we do want to keep an extra an extra lookout having to do with any sort of thyroid, autoimmune issues like that. But Taurus is very connected to our inner body, the general health of our organs, right? And so when we have Chiron going in there, who's the wounded warrior, so he's our mental wounds, our emotional wounds, spiritual, but also can be physical as well. Okay. So and this is nothing to be afraid of. It's always about being forewarned is to be forearmed. But this idea of safety and stability in all of these areas, when it comes to our money, our health, our sense of self, our self-esteem, and even having to do with our ideals, right? What it is that we feel that we project out. This is not emotional processing, guys. This Chiron transit is going to be all about your somatic truth, like what you feel in the pit of your gut that is the right thing versus what is not the right thing. So this is the year where identity becomes embodied. You know what I mean? Like you really, we all start to really figure out this new phase of ourselves. Relationships are absolutely going to demand honesty. We're not going to be able to be, not discussing the 5,000 pound elephant in the room, dancing around the truth. And this is going to be a little tricky for those of you who maybe really don't like confrontation, like those of us with heavy Libra, those of us with heavy Sag. Those our friends who have those placements don't really dig confrontation. And it doesn't have to be confrontation. This is the thing. It doesn't have to be. But you want to make sure that you don't recognize or believe or understand something that's a little tense as being confrontational. It's just a matter of maybe sorting something out through empathy and conversation and negotiating something rather than letting it escalate into being anything else. It's also going to be a time where our work has to feel meaningful because Chiron is very connected to our money. And in that Taurian energy, it's like, how do I feel about myself doing this? That's going to come up. Health responds very directly to self-respect. So if you're in a situation where you're not exercising self-respect for yourself or you don't feel respected, you're going to feel it somatically. You just are. Now, everyone's going to be vibing it a little different depending on where your placement is. And I am going to be going into an interpretation for each of our rising signs, but I want you to keep something in mind. I will be rolling these out more deeply as the year progresses. So this is really just to give you a little flavor of for each of the rising signs of what to expect. So you want to listen for your rising sign first, then your sun, and then your moon. Okay. And that's it. If you want to work with me privately, all of the details are in the description box below. But without any further ado, let's get into our each of the rising signs. We're going to start with our Aries friends. Okay, Aries rising. This year is all about authority, self-leadership. It just is that Saturn and Neptune energy going into your first house. This is going to be a pretty big deal. Especially like February 14th, 15th, and that January 26th is when Neptune goes in. I did discuss that in the astrology for the month. Neptune goes into Aries, then middle of February, Saturn is going to start going in. So this is going to begin initially. It is, though, a multi-year identity maturation, which is going to, again, initially begin. I want to say you're going to really start to feel at the end of February into March. You might be feeling like whispers of it at this point. Now, we also have Uranus in Gemini, which is activating your third house on April 26th. Really going to be very settled in there by May 1st. So this is radically changing how you think, how you communicate. There could be a radical changing having to do with something connected to family, extended family members, siblings, old friends, your neighbors, your neighborhood. Remember, the only thing that we could ever honestly say about Uranus is that Uranus is very revolutionary and he's very connected to sudden reversals, right? It's different than Pluto, which is like change and transformation. Pluto is more circular. Uranus is like, this is done. Now we're going in this direction, okay? And we're doing it suddenly, right? When he's going to be direct by the end of April, beginning of May in that third house. So There could be some sort of sudden reversal having to do with where you live, again, a family member, or just the way that you're thinking. It's an excellent time, by the way, if you want to learn something new, take a webinar, a seminar, if you want to write something, if you want to start teaching something, excellent time to really push some sort of larger idea forward. Absolutely. Now, Jupiter goes into Leo the end of June, around June 30th, depending on where in the world you live, 29th, 30th. And that's going to be expanding creativity and confidence through your fifth house. So Jupiter transiting through your fifth house, Jupiter is expansion and growth. The fifth house represents children. The fifth house represents creative projects, entrepreneurial efforts, monetizable talents, your joy, your happiness. But Jupiter, as the ruler of the ninth house, which rules foreign land and foreign travel, and fifth house rules basic vacations. Some of you may realize, hey, I'm going on a great vacation to another country. We have to be going over water, guys, okay? When we're talking about a Jupiter type of vacation or Sagittarius ninth house kind of thing. It's going over. So you may be going to another country. Maybe you're starting a business. Maybe you're having a child. Maybe you're going to become a grandparent because the fifth house also rules the energy of our our children, but especially our oldest child. Our second oldest child, we look at the seventh house. Our third oldest child, we look at our ninth house, but and so forth, right? We skip every two houses to look at our kids, but there could certainly be some sort of grandparenting going on if that is the situation. So the fifth house opposes the 11th house of friends, the 11th house of goals and gains, the 11th house of stepchildren, grandchildren, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, older siblings as well. So when Jupiter is in opposition, it's not a bad thing. It's like this push for growth. So some of you may be making some decisions about your future having to do with your goals and gains and what it is that you ultimately want to do moving forward. Now, when it comes to the area of relationships for 2026 Aries, this marks a profound reset in the way that you relate and connect. But most importantly, it's beginning with you. It's beginning with yourself. As that Saturn and Neptune crossing into your first house strips away identities that were built on what other people thought, any sort of earned approval rather than reflecting truth. And always feeling like you have to do this, you have to do that, even if it's just to go along to get along. This is what I have to do. If I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. All of that kind of thing, that's going to become extremely apparent to you this year. And you're going to want to make some changes. And as a result of that, though, relationships that relied on you as a performance type energy, and you know what I'm talking about because you guys are there a lot for people, right? So on that performance, on, you being there through a sense of like emotional urgency, or even any sort of projection. People projecting things onto you, you projecting things onto people, all of those surface things are just going to kind of fall away. They just are. Juno emphasizes self-commitment first. And when your respect, is the focus and your boundaries are the focus, partnerships are naturally going to recalibrate. Because you've been trying to play it very fair, which is great, but you know, sometimes the scales aren't always so fair, right? They're not always so balanced. And you're realizing, like, hey, the scales maybe have been a little wonkadoo, not in my favor. And it's not about you going in with any malice and saying, I want to flip the script. I want the scale to be in the other direction. It's like, no, I need to exercise some boundaries, some self-respect. And new relationships end up forming through shared growth rather than just chemistry alone, rather than just, I have this in common with you, right? Rather than things that maybe have made just basic sense up to this point. Your existing relationships that survive this year are going to be really, really solid, but they're going to evolve. You know what I'm saying? You're going to notice that this year. Your most important relationships in your life, I don't care who it's with, whether it's with your kids, your friends, your significant other, it doesn't matter. There's going to be an evolution. And if there's not an evolution, it's likely going to be falling away. Okay, because the same old can't be going on, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Now, when it comes to your career, perhaps your public reputation, your standing in the world, the direction that your life is aiming, right? Because not everybody is working. This is going to come through authentic agency, self-directed agency, self-leadership, having agency over your own life, which is what you guys are about. That's why in tarot, you are the Emperor card. And it's natural, it's not forced. This Uranus in your third house brings rapid changes. And again, how you communicate, how you teach, how you write, how you market yourself. Right? Your ideas of being able to get something out there. So new skills and new platforms appear suddenly, requiring adaptability. And that Jupiter in the fifth supports creative entrepreneurship, any sort of leadership role and visibility. Again, the direction of your life might change because of a new child hitting your family, whether it's your own or a grandchild, or maybe you're deciding to adopt, anything like that of Jupiter, because Jupiter also rules law, legalities, and governance. So you might even be adopting. But Jupiter in the fifth supports all of these things, particularly anything that feels personal, that feels expressive, that feels very passion driven. You thrive when you are allowed to um, just take joy in the part of the success of something, right? This is just going to be like food for your soul, not to sound cheesy, but that's truly is what it's about. Now, as far as health goes, your body mirrors your boundaries, okay? So, and that I should just end it there. Your body is mirroring your boundaries. So if your boundaries are weak and you're continuing to overdo and be there for everybody, guess what's going to happen? Fatigue, inflammation, headaches can signal overextension. Remember, you guys rule the head. Anything from like the middle of the night up, boom, right? ENT, the right eye, not the left, that's Taurus. So as you can like get a twitch, you can get a headache, you can get any of these things. You want to be careful. And Vesta is going to be highlighting your devotion to sustainable rhythms, to routines, to taking care of yourself in the simplest little ways. Now, as far as the eclipse seasons go, okay? Let's talk about the eclipses for the year. So we have February 17th, we have the Aquarius solar eclipse. This is going to be happening in your 11th house, where remember, solar eclipses, they eclipse out, so new things could come in. So we're talking about new communities, new friendships, collaborators, or long-term visions, right? Because that 11th house is very connected to your future, to your goals and gains, to the people that you're connected with. So something's getting eclipsed out, but it's getting eclipsed in as well. March 3rd, we have the Virgo lunar eclipse in the sixth house. Guys, this is going to highlight burnout, job tasks, health habits conclude. So if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, now, this could simply be maybe you're eating too much sugar, or you're trying to strategize with a new way of eating, and it's actually maybe more harmful, and you realize this than it's working, or some sort of new exercise routine, or starting some sort of new exercise routine, right? So, this is also connected to daily responsibilities as well. So we want to make sure that we're balancing our energy out during that March 3rd eclipse, because we don't want to go into burnout, right? Because the eclipse wants to clear out things that are unevenly distributed in our energy. And then we have August. August is very interesting. We have heavy energies in August. Pisces lunar eclipse, emotional release of grief or subconscious patterns. This is happening in the 12th house. That lunar eclipse, we have some other energies going on here leading into September, where there's going to be such a significant shift, I feel like, from August into September for a couple of reasons. We're going to have Chiron and Taurus. The nodes will have changed. We have these eclipses, this little eclipse story that's happening from August into September. And then I'm telling you, October is going to start to feel a lot lighter, like October, November. The year ends very, very differently. But I do want to discuss this Chiron into Taurus in your second house. Going from June 20th to the middle of September, Chiron is going to be exposing wounds around self-worth, income, as well as survival independence. So you may likely confront patterns of under-earning, fears around money, overgiving, or equating productivity with value. So healing comes through stabilizing your finances and honoring your body's limits. Remember, as I said at the beginning of the video, Taurus energy is very connected to the general health of our inner organs. It's also connected to our money and our bank account and our sense of self and stability. So you want to know before that June energy hits, once Chiron goes in there, these are some things that, but remember, these are some things that might be getting highlighted, but these are also going to serve to be areas of growth as well. Because what Chiron wants to do is expose false narratives. And so being really worried about money, maybe when you don't have to be so worried, but maybe what you need is different strategy. You know, being really worried about your health. Okay, maybe you don't have to be so worried about your health. Maybe you need to execute different strategy when it comes to your health as well. Looking at things through a different lens. Okay. Now, I do want to mention some asteroids as far as rolling out the year. And again, I will speak more specifically about them as the year rolls out. But Juno is going to be very lit up. So, what can you expect? Commitment to self-respect before partnership. Now, this doesn't mean just me, but it means like, hold on. Am I being respected? Am I being honored? Or am I continuing to erase myself with the situation? Am I forgetting to remember myself? This doesn't have to be a big grand thing, Aries. It's just about saying, all right, how does this feel for me? And being able to communicate that without being blamey or anything like that, because you're recalibrating boundaries in your life. Now, Sirius is going to be bringing this relearning on how to nourish yourself without urgency, without feeling like, oh my gosh, if I don't do this, everything's going to fall apart. Or if I don't do this, then this is definitely going to happen, right? It's going to be, Sirius is very, very bright, very, very powerful in your chart this year, which is nice because it's going to alleviate some anxiety. And Palace is all about strategic and financial intelligence growth for you. So, what I'm talking about having to do with this Chiron and Taurus, you're going to have a lot of help in being able to recalibrate your finances. And honestly, guys, I don't care how much money you have. You could have all the money in the world, but you could also be super afraid that the rug can be pulled out from underneath your feet. You could be really afraid that as quickly as it came in, it could just as easily leave, that something can happen. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where our minds can go, right? That's where our mind can go when Chiron goes in there, right? So you just want to take a deep breath and say, let me just let the year roll out and take everything as it comes and just be very smart in your choices when it comes to both your money as well as your health. Now, Vesta is going to be lighting up this idea of devotion for you, but it's devotion to sustainable self-reliance and not being overly reliant on anybody for whether it's money or whether it's to feel good about yourself or whether it's to have fun. It's really getting in touch with your own, the core sense of who you are, really identifying your own beauty and getting super extra comfortable within your own skin. Not that you guys aren't. You know, when we take Aries in isolation, it's a very confident energy. It's very fiery and it doesn't know fear yet. But we always have transits and energies that are swirling around that could get in the way of that, you know? And especially since you're getting off the 7 year stint, you're starting to get off of a 7 year stint of Chiron transiting in your energy. And when Chiron transits in a person's energy, it could debilitate that energy a little bit. So not feeling quite as brave or quite as like you have quite as much agency maybe as you once did. Let's put it that way. So for you guys, the key message for this year is worth is not proven, it's embodied, right? So you're just going to stop proving who you are and you're just going to start living it. And it's not to say that you're not going to give a shit about what anybody else thinks or says, but you're kind of not going to give a shit what anybody else says. Because if you're respectful, then perhaps with their continuing to expect from you is a little more of that imbalance that you're just not willing to deal with anymore. Okay. Now, the last thing that I want to mention are the retrogrades for this year. So Mercury retrograde this year is going to be refining communication, especially from February to March. You're going to have a lot of emotional clarity. Then from June to July, lots of very deep family conversations, Aries, deep conversations about who does what, about boundaries, about responsibilities, about what the future is going to be looking like. And then October, November, all about intimacy. Now, that Pluto retrograde from May 6th to October 15th, you want to expect there's going to be a purging in your energy of unhealthy group dynamics. You are going to be laying the law down. So if there is that family member or there is that person in your life that's just super toxic, this is not about saying in my way or the highway. It's about saying that toxicity cannot continue. I don't want it in my energy. So I'm going to lovingly distance myself, if that's possible, or sit down and have the conversation. Okay, guys, so that is what I have for you, Aries rising. I hope this was helpful for 2026. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Taurus rising is all about stability through self-worth for you guys. Oh, you must be so excited that Uranus is leaving your sign once and for all, going into my sun sign. You guys are getting rid of them. So let's talk about the core energies for you guys. Is Saturn and Neptune moving through your 12th. You're closing out a long karmic cycle, right, Taurus? Good riddance. And that Uranus continues reshaping your income and your values going into that second house, right? That Geminian energy in the second house. And Jupiter in Leo is going to be expanding your emotional and your physical foundations through that fourth house energy. Now, remember, Jupiter is very much about expansion. So some of you may be, um, Jupiter is very connected to foreign land and foreign travel in the fourth house. You might even be thinking about staying abroad for a while, living somewhere else for a while. But you might be expanding for a while. Some of you may be expanding your family. Maybe that you're becoming grandparents, or you're becoming parents for the first time, or you're becoming an aunt or an uncle, or something like that. Or you're expanding your physical property in one way or another. Maybe you're buying a bigger home, or you're just there's something where there's growth. Maybe somebody moving in. It wouldn't really be a moving out kind of thing. Maybe you're moving in with somebody, but there is this idea of expansion that's going to be happening from the end of June all the way through the beginning of the summer of 2027. Now, as far as relationships go for you, Taurus, this year dismantles emotional dependency patterns with that Saturn and Neptune moving through your 12th house, unconscious attachments, this habit that we sort of just get into of what we think we need, and why we think we need it ends up rising to the surface for you to let go of. Really look at first and then let go of, because you're not no longer going to be feeling compelled to stay where you feel like you're not appreciated, or where you're unseen, or you're emotionally depleted, or you're just not getting what it is that you need anymore from that space. And Juno is good, the asteroid Juno is going to be reframing commitment as emotional safety and mutual nourishment, rather than just loyalty through endurance and sticking it out for the long term, right? There's going to be a recalibration there, but relationships are ultimately going to end up strengthening when they feel calm and consistent and grounding, and not dramatic and not uncertain. And it's going to feel a lot more comfortable. Like there's just going to be this by the end of the year. This is not going to be a one and done thing, but by the end of the year, I promise you, by the end, I want to say the second half of October into November through the end of the year, it's just going to be so much more calm at that point. But we have to really look at the idea of boundaries and recalibration between now and then. Now, as far as career goes, for those of you who are working, your professional life does shift from this survival-based effort to value-based alignment. Because with that Uranus in your second house, again, it's going to continue to alter the income stream, encouraging innovation, independence, flexibility. Sudden financial changes can push you to trust your skills rather than, a larger corporation or institution, or how somebody else thinks something should be done. You're really going to, because remember, Uranus is very smart. He's the smartest planet. So whenever Uranus transits a house, whenever it sits in a place, we become really brilliant in that area. We just do, and we know that. And we know that Uranus is also about sudden reversals. And we also know, Taurus, that, that second house, which is your home, right? Astrologically, that's your home, does rule our inner organs. So, look, Chiron, you're going to have Chiron and Taurus in there. It's going to continue this body-based healing. So circumstances to be healed may come up related to digestion, related to self-image, related to your nervous system regulation, things connected to your thyroid, okay? These things could be coming up. Right. So Uranus is about advances in science and medicine as well. It's about things that are out of the box, non-traditional, out of the ordinary, which in my view, when, that was the first, when I started studying medical astrology, that was my first takeaway. I'm never going to forget it. I was maybe 2 hours into the course and saying, okay, Uranus is connected to autoimmune, among other things. There are other markers that we look at, but Uranus is very connected to that. And that second house that rules the thyroid, we just want to make sure like everything is functioning okay. And if it's not, guess what? Uranus rules advances in science and medicine. Yes, you can approach it. Second house is also the food that we eat. Uranus is very electric. It can create, when it's working with Chiron, some sort of inflammatory. So, adopting an anti-inflammatory diet is very good. But if you need the Western medicine to actually initially do the regulation, do that. Don't be a silly bird, right? Do it. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that you don't want to. The energy would not be well placed if you only try to attack it only 100% holistically. Okay. So that's you know, just to give you a little heads up there. And also Ceres is very highlighted in your chart, which is, with the second house energy, which is really encouraging and emphasizing nourishment and rest. So you do want to make sure that you're eating really well. Now, as far as that Chiron transit goes, it's going to be like the third week in June, around June 19th or 20th, depending on where in the world that you lived, until the middle of September. So it's just a pretty quick dip in, but this is very deeply personal, obviously. Chiron is going to be activating your identity, your body image, your confidence, old insecurities about appearance, about aging, about enoughness. Am I enough? These things can surface, and it's not to punish you or to be difficult, but to be healed at the root, and for you to understand that all that surface stuff, it doesn't really matter. Physical self-acceptance becomes absolutely transformational in this energy. Now, moving on to some asteroidal impacts for you. Again, I will be breaking this out as we go through the year, but just in general, Juno this year is going to be rewriting your identity-based commitments, right? What you do that is specifically you, that you feel very committed to. So, like, I have to do this job. I'm committed to this job because it's connected to who or what I am. You might start to realize my job is what I do. It's actually not who I am. You might be doing the same thing having to do with your friendships, your marriage. Juno is the marriage asteroid, deep commitment asteroid, anything that you're deeply committed to that's very connected to your identity, you're going to be rewriting this year. Now, Ceres, very, very bright Ceres, is going to be healing relationships. And it's going to be healing, especially your relationship like between you and your body. So healing relationship with food, healing relationship with your body rhythms, healing your relationship to your sense of self and your self-esteem and your ability to feel like you have a strong foundation. Guys, that's a really nice area for Ceres to be highlighting for you. You're getting a lot of help. There's a lot of blessings coming through him. Now, Palace is going to be redefining your strength through presence, like being really present. You guys, I feel like you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like allowing yourself to be in the moment and connected to the people that you're in the room with, being connected to yourself, being connected to an idea, and not going along just to get along. Not hanging out with people who just because you're lonely, but hanging out with people because you feel genuinely connected to them in one way. Maybe not in every way, but in one way at least, right? And then Vesta is going to be lighting up the idea of devotion, right? To anything that you do that honors yourself, whether it's rest, whether it's exercise, whether it's eating good food, whether it's, allowing yourself to be in healthier relationships. And there's a lot of realizing like, hey, I'm allowed to be here and just take up space and not feel bad about it. Do you know what I mean? Like you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to do that. Now, the eclipse timeline, let's just break this down real quick, having to do with how in short, it's going to be impacting you guys. The February 17th solar eclipse in Aquarius is going to be happening in your 10th house. So this could bring some sort of new public role, a new title, a new career direction, or you just generally pivoting the arrow of the direction of your life. Because remember, the 10th house is the highest house in the chart. It is an angular house. An angular house is when they're activated. It's action. There's action going on. Remember, angular houses are 1, 4, 7, and 10. So when we have activations in any of those houses, we're doing something. Something's happening. So this could certainly be something connected to your goals and gains, something. So some of you may even be like, okay, I'm going to Bjorn, because the 10th house of landlord is Capricorn, which is very much about foundational stability, very connected to foundational stability, responsibility, long term, right? Because Saturn is Kronos' sun, right? Like father time, this idea of something having a longer life. So you might be making some sort of decision for your future here, right? When it comes to this February 17th Aquarius solar eclipse. Now, March 3rd, we have the Virgo lunar eclipse in your 5th house. Romantic or creative chapter of something can end. So there could be the way that you're doing business, the way that a relationship is rolling out. There could be some sort of change in the life of one of your children, something like that. Now it's in Virgo. So Virgo does rule health. It rules the daily responsibilities. It rules our day-to-day work environment as well. So there could be some change, and again, having to do with work, if not a relationship, um, where there can be this some sort of change, right? Having to do with um, health or responsibilities of one of your children. Doesn't have to be a big deal, but just a little tweaking there, right? And then we have the August energies. So we have the 12th and the 28th. So in the 12th, we have the Leo solar eclipse in the 4th house. So this is new home. This is having to do with a family role, some sort of emotional base, some sort of situation there. Now, because it's in Leo and Leo is connected to children, that could bring maybe the birth of a grandchild. This could bring a job at home, some sort of new joy at home. This could be really getting a lot more comfortable in your home, beautifying your home, because Leo loves things that are beautiful, that make us feel happy. Any of those things. Then we go into the 28th. This is the Pisces lunar in the 11th house. Friendships or social identities ultimately dissolve. You end up rewriting your goals and gains and where it is that you're actually going with that August 28th energy. So we have a lot going on there in the summer. If you think about it, we have Jupiter going into Leo. We have the north and south nodes are going to be changing. They're going into Leo and Aquarius. So that's a really big deal when it comes to our future and this idea of our children, and how this is going to be manifesting, for you there. What else is it? The eclipses, and it's just like boom, boom, and then Chiron's going to be in Taurus during that same time period as well. But I promise you, it is going to settle up by the time fall comes. Now, as far as the retrograde goes, Mercury retrogrades for this year are going to be revisiting for you guys financial and emotional conversations, and that Pluto retrograde detoxes career ambition and external validation, or it's just like you're just not going to be going for what looks right on the outside, what's supposed to be, what's supposed to be, what's supposed to be. You know what I mean? As the message is here really for you guys is that security stops being external and it becomes embodied. Like you end up owning your own security because of choices that you ultimately end up making. This is not to say that you're not working with other people to help establish that security, but there's no more waiting. There's no more relying on. There's no more, I'm not going to do this until that. You're just going to be having a lot more agency this year, which is good. This is a good thing. And between like now and the fall, you have a lot of really good energy to act in that way. If you choose not to, that's okay too. But the whole reason why we like to understand our astrology, like I said before, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. We could just let things wash over us, or we could exercise the power of our choice. Okay, my friends, that is what I have for you. I hope this was helpful in some way. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. Hey Gemini rising. So this is gonna be a big year for you guys because Uranus is going into your first house on April 26th. And this is gonna be identity disruption and liberation. And that's what we can say about Uranus, right? Sudden reversals. He's electric. He's very smart. He's very focused on the future. And along with him, we have Jupiter expanding, learning and speaking and writing in your third house, which is your astrological home, is the third house. So this is beautiful for those of you who are writing and speaking. And, if you're a speaker, we're all speaking, hopefully. But, when you're like a professional speaker, a teacher, you're writing, you're getting something out there. And the nodes are going to be activating that third house, ninth house axis, which is your axis, right? So you're also going to have your shapes just reshaped, your beliefs reshaped, your mindset reshaped, where it is that you wish to go in your life reshaped. So very powerful. The axis, your third house, ninth house axis is going to be very, very powerful. And of course, opposing you is Sagittarius as well as Jupiter. So Jupiter is a very important energy for you. So it's really lighting up that third house. So what's very funny to me when I see this is like, if you've been feeling that push to do something, and it's probably become louder and louder, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. And it's like this year you have to do it. That's it. But you're gonna have so much support to actually get it done. Now, as far as relationships go, communication becomes a non-negotiable thing for you guys when it comes to intimacy. And I'm not even talking about just with a significant other. I mean, even with your friends, is people have to be able to know how to flip and communicate with you. You know what I mean? You've been very patient. And it's not that it's just that you're just simply not going to, but even you're not going to want to hold back. It's right because Uranus going into your first house radically alters how you express yourself. And you got a little taste of this from the summer into the fall, right? That little, dip that Uranus did into your sign before he retrograded back into Taurus. But again, he's coming back the end of April. He's going to be settled in full throttle by the beginning of May. And you're just not going to be able to tolerate relationships that limit growth, that limit curiosity and deep conversation, right? This is what you need. It's almost like you're going to feel like you need to be fed here. And at the same time, Juno this year is going to be emphasizing your intellectual curiosity. So therefore, you're going to be looking for people who are your intellectual equals. That could be a friend, that could be a group of people. This could be a significant other, but like people who just, and Jem, I know you know what I mean. If they just don't get it, well, you're just sitting here going like, wow, it must be kind of comfortable to be able to just not think like that, you know? You know what I mean? Or how does that even happen when people just stop being intellectually curious? It's going to baffle you to the point where you're not even going to be able to comfortably deal with it in other people, right? Um, but your partnerships and even your friendships can absolutely thrive and should flourish in the most beautiful way when both individuals, like you and the other person, evolve together. You're curious together. You're learning together, right? Superficial connections are going to fade really quickly, and honest dialogue becomes really magnetic. It's very magical. And what does that even mean? Honest, right? That's very subjective. It is. It's subjective, right? But your honesty and how your honest view of how things should be. So no more like, hiding under the barrel or behind the bush with things. It's not a comfortable place for Gemini anyway, but with Uranus having traveled, right, in the house of the hidden for so long, now he's busting into that first house. You've been going through a very long period of very deep processing and recalibrating, restructuring really your inner world. And now it's time for that inner world to sort of meet the world. Do you know what I mean? Now, when it comes to the area of career, or maybe just your general life direction, because maybe you're not working, there's this reinvention that's going to be accelerated recalibrating this year. A lot of you have been feeling the whispers of it happening in layers, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. A lot of you have been going, along with that. But with that Jupiter expanding your third house, writing, teaching, media, education, again, speaking, digital, anything connected to a digital platform, these areas absolutely flourish. So your voice gains research when it reflects lived experiences rather than borrowed narratives, someone else's story, anything that's not authentic, right? Because you have things to deliver, Gemini. You have things to speak about. And that Uranus in the first reshapes your public image at the same time. So many of you may find that you're going to ultimately end up pivoting roles, in your work or what it is that you're doing in your life. You might rebrand or step into a kind of work that feels truer to who you are right now. Because I am sure a lot of you are in a space right now where you feel like you're just not living, whether it's your work or whether it's just your basic lived experience, it's not in alignment with who you honestly are. And it's not because of anything other than you're the one who's changing, right? So there's this adaptability is going to become very highlighted. And you guys are very good at that, right? It becomes your best asset this year, the ability to be able to adapt to new situations and kind of go with the flow, right? Now, as far as your health goes, really keep a mind out for your nervous system. Okay. So, Vestas supports mental focus and your energy, your overall energy this year, which is a very good thing, right? But when I'm talking about with your nervous system, you want to make sure that you're not over caffeinating yourself, that you're getting enough sleep, that you're not burning the candle at both ends, that you're not, as I said in the beginning of the video, this is a very somatic year kind of for everybody for several different reasons, but we're feeling things a lot more deeply. So if we're in this space of internalizing a lot of our stress or internalizing a lot of our fatigue rather than allowing ourselves to exercise it out, making sure we're taking in the right nutrients, getting the right amount of rest, supplementing ourselves well, trying to stay balanced, right? It will end up, draining. So we don't want any like adrenal fatigue. That nervous system is connected to everything. So we just want to watch that. All right. So balance is very, very important here. And really, honestly, this is for everyone. As Chiron goes into Taurus, literally everybody has to start recalibrating how they approach. And it's very timely, right? Everything that's been going on with the food pyramid. This is like just preparing for Chiron to go into Taurus, right? We're all reevaluating, reassessing everything that we put in our mouth, everything that goes into our mouth, and everything that comes out of our mouth as well. So we're really recalibrating how we speak, how we communicate, um, how we make money, all of these things. It's a pretty profound kind of energy. And this is going to be happening for you guys, though. The dip in for this year from June 19th to 20th, depending on where in the world you live, to the middle of September is going to be happening, Chiron and Taurus, in your 12th house. And that's the house of the hidden. It's the house behind the scenes. It's the house of your subconscious. It's the house of self-sabotaging behavior, right? Because remember, 12th house is where Pisces lives. And Pisces glyph is the twin fish, right? You know all about the twin stuff, right? It's a little bit of a different twin. So you're adjacent twins, Gemini. When we're talking about Pisces, these are twin fish going in opposite directions. So it's being unconditionally loving and giving, but it's also self-sabotage and the ability to be victimized, right? The one fish going one way and the other going the other way. And Chiron activates all of these wounds that are living in there because it is the house of where we end things, right? So all of these subconscious wounds around safety, around abandonment, around survival memory, right? Chiron being experienced through the lens of Pisces is going to be this experience where you could have these energies rising up to the surface where when you needed the world and the world did not have your back, these things are resurfacing. So you can end up becoming very sensitive to who has your back and who doesn't. You could also develop a very low tolerance for people who just continuously self-sabotage themselves, and it becomes difficult for you to be there for them. At the same time, a couple of weeks later, you can have a bleeding heart for the underdog in a situation. There's always this sort of pendulum that swings whenever we're dealing with Chiron. Unconditionally loving and giving. And then the other side is you can't find the empathy even if somebody put $1 billion in front of you. It's just like, just make the change, honey. Stop complaining about it. Been there, done that, right? Especially when it comes to, and I'm not saying that to you, I'm saying that you would be saying that to other people, right? Um, and it's because what's going to be highlighted in your energy is this awareness of throughout your life when you needed people and they were not there for you, regardless of why. This is not about getting mad at people for not being there for you and kind of drudging up all of these old things. It's more about saying, like, well, I feel unsupported now because my experience has been in my life this, and this when I truly did not feel supported. This is not about blaming the people associated with that. It's about recognizing why your soul, on a soul level, understands your emotions, right? Of feeling unsupported. And just like, this idea of the trust issues that can absolutely come up, right? And this is ancestral, right? And very, very somatic, right? This is looking at the deep past. And healing can easily occur though here. I do want you to know, even when Chiron is just doing this little dip in, through rest, therapy, dream work, releasing guilt tied to needing support, really looking into the your shadow self, really understanding your astrology chart as well, understanding like where you come from, really understanding your Chiron, your Black Moon Lilith, and your nodal energies. These are very, very helpful, right? Now, in general, having to do with the asteroids for this year, Juno is going to be ending like these unconscious relational contracts where you felt like beholden to somebody or you felt like I have to feel a certain way about this person because Juno is very connected to commitments. And the way that Juno is aspecting throughout the year, the common thread that I see as being the end result is ending these unconscious relational contracts. Sirius, who's going to be burning very, very bright in the sky for you guys all year, is going to be teaching you how to rest and understand that rest is nourishment. And you're going to be learning that this year. You're going to be handling rest and taking breaks very differently and not undervaluing them. Because remember what I said about the nervous system. So having to ground yourself periodically, super important this year. And Pallas is going to be bringing a very subtle pattern of, of, how do I say this? Okay. So Gemini, you're very smart, right? Because you rule the mental processing, right? The whole idea of mental processing and communication. But what can happen is a scattered energy, right? And we all know about that, right? The scattered energy of the Gemini. Very smart about many different things, right? But let's just keep in mind the way that Pallas is going to be aspecting Uranus in your first house. What's going to happen is your ability to stop, take a deep breath, and recognize things is going to be off the charts. You're just going to be able to, like when I say pattern recognition, you're going to be able to figure things out more easily, understand people with a much greater ease. Being able to see what's coming in the future is just going to become extremely clear. Where up to this point, the edges have been quite foggy, it's coming into focus. I guess that's the better way to say it, right? And Vesta is going to bring a real solid devotion to inner quiet. It's going to be working very beautifully with Ceres, very beautifully with that Uranus in the first house, but really valuing that energy, right? Because real healing for you happens this year beneath your language, beneath the speaking. beneath all of that, very internally. Now, as far as the eclipses go, just in short, the February 17th one, Aquarius solar eclipse, that's going to be happening in your ninth house. It's going to be lighting up like new belief systems, study, travel. And remember, that's also the same axis that the nodes are going to be lighting up for you guys, Gemini, right? Let me just take a look. Yeah. 9 and 3, having to deal with negotiation, learning, your belief system, study, all of that. Okay. So that's where the changes are going to be happening for you, having to do with the nodes. I'm going to do a separate video on that though. And then March 3rd, that Virgo lunar eclipse in the fourth house, home and family circumstances. There's going to be some sort of closure there between, it starts in March, right? These eclipses always roll out for about 6 months. So this could be, you know, there could be the change in the health of a family member. There could be a change in the residence where it is that you live. There could be some just a general change in dynamic having to do with who lives within your home. So maybe somebody's moving out, maybe somebody's moving in. There could be some change there because it's connected to Virgo. Maybe there's some sort of change again having to do with working from home as well. Be some sort of change. There are many different lenses through which we can look at it. Then the August 12th Leo solar eclipse in the third house. This is like new message energy, new platform, new voice. Leo energy has to do with entrepreneurial efforts and monetizable talent. So maybe you're starting a podcast or some sort of something like that. Maybe you're starting to teach a new class. Maybe you're writing a new book. Maybe there's something going on in the life of one of your children. This could certainly bring the Leo solar eclipse in that third house. It could be some sort of new happening in the life of especially your oldest child. And then we have a couple weeks later, August 28th, we have the Pisces lunar eclipse. That's happening in your 10th house. So some sort of career identity release. Maybe you're changing jobs. Maybe you're just changing the way in which you do your work. It doesn't have to be career. It's also your public reputation. So how it is that you're known. Um, uh, that Pisces energy is very creative. So maybe you're getting known as being, someone who is a very creative voice out there in the world. Um, what else could there be? Maybe you're becoming a nurse, or you're leaving a medical profession. Could be that. Um, if you're in any sort of supporting role, maybe you're actually changing roles, having to do with your career, or even having to do with some sort of supportive role in your life in general. Could bring that. What's very interesting, though, to me about this, the August back-to-back eclipses are going to actually be hitting hardest in September. Actually, not in August. Would have feeling in August, but it's going to be rolling out in September. And then everything's just going to be like, it's just going to start to like chill out a little bit by the middle to the end of October. And then November and December are just going to be very different experiences for all of us, But Jem, this is a year where your mind is everything, right? Your mind is everything. But setting your mind to something, when you change your mind, your life is going to end up following. So changing your mind about the perspective. Again, this doesn't mean that you have to leave everything in your life or anything at all, but it's more about changing perspective, changing the lens through which you're looking at everything. Okay, my friend. So I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time to talk about February's energy. Until then, bye-bye. Hi, Cancer. I hope you guys are doing great. So for you guys, this is a year of self-worth and emotional authority. Very liberating. That Saturn and Neptune energy in your 10th house redefines your vocation. It could redefine where it is that you're going, the direction in life. It could be connected to your career or your public reputation or your standing in the world. Maybe you're getting married, maybe you're getting divorced, maybe you're getting a new job, maybe you're deciding to move, but there's some sort of, 10th house, angular house type of decision that's being made. Now, with the Uranus energy in the 12th house for you, going into the sign of Gemini, this is dissolving these unconscious patterns that have been going. Now, and you guys are very connected to your unconscious patterns because you're ruled by the moon, right? And so these patterns that right in the 12th house maybe not might not be the best thing for you, where you recognize where you're being taken advantage of, where, and I know the word victim sounds very like, oh, but you know what, sometimes that's the right word, where you've been victimized, where you've been allowing yourself to be taken advantage of, or where you've been exercising any sort of self-sabotaging behavior. These things are going to become you're going to become very aware. Well, Uranus does not play. He's electric. He's connected to air. He's connected to change. He's connected to revolution. And he has no problem digging up. He will dig deeper than Pluto any day of the week. He does not care. He's not mean. He's got your future, right, in his mind. And it's about recognizing that if we keep doing the same old thing, we're going to end up in the same place, if not back 3 steps. And Uranus is just not going to have that. Just not having it. So you're really having your inner architecture very kind of reorganized by him, for sure, right? I mean, this is what's happening. And then that Jupiter in Leo stabilizes income and confidence in that second house energy. I'm just looking at and that's also the axis actually that the nodes are going to be going into. So Jupiter is going to be in that Leo energy in the second house, that South Node energy, along with the South Node. And remember, the South Node in Leo is more about reframing rather than total releasing. So reframing ideas here, right? Reframing how you view yourself, how you view money, how you view the idea of stability, right? So this is all going to be feeding into your identity and your sense of self. This is just going to be happening. And by the way, the North Node going into Aquarius in the eighth house of other people's money. This could bring money through inheritance, insurance payout. A significant other could come into money. Um, Now, the North Node is about stepping out of your comfort zone and looking at something differently. So looking at your investments differently, um, paying down debt because you're looking at it differently. But again, it's other people. North Node in that space could also bring an increase to intimacy, but also to a very strong desire to master something. And I say this especially because Pluto is going to be in there with Juno. Juno's in there as well, but Pluto's going to be in there as well. And Pluto's very, first of all, exalted, and I've been saying that in all of your videos. Pluto is very exalted in the eighth house because it's where he astrologically lives. He's the modern ruler of Scorpio. So he lives there. And so very connected to the idea of mastery. So when we have the North Node in there with Pluto all about mastery, so this is great for those of you who are astrologers. This is great for those of you who are detectives doing police work, any sort of psychology work. If you do anything that's connected to like bringing something old back to life, like if you refurbish things, if you're any sort of interior designer, anything like that, so good for anything having to do with that. But it's also really good for digging out, the stuff that's stuck in your basement there. You know what I mean? Like in that energetic basement of the eighth house, everything that's from the past that you haven't really wanted to look at, right? So it's a very stabilizing energy in that way. Now, when it comes to this year in relationships, you're going to stop equating love with emotional labor. Like, I'm doing this for you and that for you and this for you. Why don't you appreciate me more? Why don't you love me, right? That kind of idea. Saturn and Neptune in that 10th house is also going to be clarifying public and private roles a lot. So this is going to be making it impossible for you to continue over giving, guys, honestly, not without any recognition or reciprocity. It's done. You're so loving, you're so giving, you're always doing favors, you're always doing this and that, and you could get overlooked. I see it all the time. I have so many Cancer energies in my life. All the time. Now, Juno is going to be showing up this year for you guys to reframe commitment through mutual respect and emotional accountability. So relationships are either going to mature through honesty or they're going to quietly resolve. And it's not even going to be a big drama thing because you learn that being needed is not the same as being valued. You're learning that. And well, I don't care what if it's your friendships, an intimate relationship, even if it's a relationship with a boss or bosses, that's just going to become a very natural default for you. Now, as speaking of boss or bosses, when it comes to your career, Career purposes become very central for you this year because Saturn is demanding structure and responsibility, while Neptune dissolves ambitions rooted in any kind of external validation. So you're really called more towards work that feels meaningful and not just respectable. And I've said a million times in your videos, guys, you have to love what you're doing. It doesn't mean you're all doing it. A lot of you will do what you need to do just for the moment. You understand it's what you do, it's not who you are, and all that good stuff. But if you're going to feel really peaceful in your work, it's very important for you to do something that's meaningful, and that's very subjective. So it's meaningful to you, your significant other or your family might not get it. Doesn't matter. It's not their life, right? And that Jupiter in your second house is going to be strengthening your confidence. You're going to feel like you have a lot more of a backbone to speak up, but it's also going to be strengthening your income at the same time, particularly through skills that reflect your emotional intelligence, that reflect your caregiving or your leadership that's absolutely grounded in empathy. These are all beautiful things. You're going to be making money doing it, right? Financial stability improves as your self-worth solidifies as you progress through the year, right? It might start off a little wonkadoo, but it's going to get a lot better come the fall, right? Once the middle of October, beginning of November hits. Now, as far as health goes, digestive health and emotional regulation respond really well to routine and structure this whole year. So try to get yourself into like a little bit of a groove when it comes to walking regularly and, eating regularly and making good choices, all common sense stuff, right? But that digestive system will not respond well if you don't do those things. So you want to be careful this year. Your body's going to be very sensitive to overcaffeination, sensitive to alcohol, sensitive to sugar. You're going to be a little more sensitive to these things, especially when we hit from June into September, the middle of September. We do have that Chiron and Taurus in there. Now that is hitting your 11th house. And so what's going to be happening for you are wounds around the idea of belonging, friendship, and community value are going to be hitting the scene here. So you may realize where you've minimized yourself in order to stay a part of something, in order to feel included. And healing comes through choosing groups that value your emotional intelligence and not to just have them in your life, just to have somebody to hang out with or to just have somebody. Now, this is very different than networking. Okay, networking is a very good thing. With Chiron there, though, you could feel this lack of connection when you go out there to connect, right, with these people. Um, you could feel unjustly criticized. You could feel, right? So just you want to watch yourself when you're dealing with groups, especially from June to September. I'm not saying don't engage because the people who you do engage with who actually recognize your emotional intelligence, you could have very strong bonds formed there. There's no question about that. Now, just in general, over the course of the year, Juno is going to be highlighting your commitment to align with community, to align with friends, like-minded people, right? And Ceres, very brightly shining, very brightly supporting you, is going to be releasing this idea of over caretaking of people or situations and having to run in and anticipate what somebody needs. And all of those things are done from a place of love, Cancer. But you know what? Chances are the people who you do that for, they even understand that you overdo, right? So it's just about balancing the scales. It's not about becoming like it's selfish. It's not about that. It's just about balancing those scales a little bit. And Palace is going to be bringing very strategic networks to you. And this is going to improve. Please, I'm emphasizing strategic, going back to that idea of emotional intelligence and being able to honor and recognize what it is that you are actually bringing to the table and not what they might be a little jealous about or they might be a little threatened by. Too bad on them. Don't even bother with those people. And if your spidey senses are telling you, hey, I don't know if I should trust this person, keep a few meters between you and that person, right? Just do that. And Vesta is going to be highlighting for you the idea of devotion to shared purpose, such a good energy for relationships, for starting a business with somebody, for anything that's a shared purpose. Anything that's shared. So this is great for like getting married, starting a business, leveling up a relationship, buying a home, deciding to have a child together, anything like that. Lovely, lovely, lovely. But what you're going to be realizing by the fall is that you don't have to shrink in order to belong. You don't have to stay quiet. You don't have to go along to get along. So much like you are, have been. Okay. Now the eclipses, I'm just a quick addressing of those. The February 17th one in the sign of Aquarius is happening in your eighth house. So this could be new intimacy, new financial agreements. Eclipses in that eighth house could bring eclipsing out debt, eclipsing some sort of agreement, because it's also very connected to like absolute um, commitment. There could be the ending of a divorce situation, any sort of legal situation that's got a money sign attached to it, um, new intimacy, a new relationship. So it wouldn't be like a brand new relationship. It would be like the intimate part of the relationship sort of beginning. But an energy of sharing for sure. Now, the March 3rd, Virgo lunar eclipse in the third, some sort of way of thinking, some sort of way of communicating is going to be ending, right? Now, March 3rd is also very connected to siblings and extended family. And in the sign of Virgo, Virgo does indicate health. So it could be some sort of health situation going on with a sibling or extended family member ends, or it ends up leveling up in some sort of way that needs addressing. The way that you think, the way that you learn, the way that you process could be changing, right? These are all things that could happen when we have the Virgo lunar in the third, that kind of eclipse. Now, August we have two. We have the Leo on August 12th, we have the Leo solar in the second, and the 28th, we have the Pisces lunar in the ninth. So that second house one in the middle of August is new income, also some sort of new value system, something like that. But I feel like it's very connected to, so some of you might be getting a new job, some of you might be meeting somebody new that you really connect with really beautifully. Some of you may be um, changing your mind literally about your worldview, especially with the Pisces lunar eclipse in the ninth house, where belief or faith releases as you know it. So it doesn't mean that you won't be feeling it anymore. You might be leveling it up. You might be changing your mind about your political stance, the way that you view law, legalities, governance, religion, organized or otherwise, the way that you learn, the way that you teach. The eclipse here could also mean maybe you're getting something published, you're getting something marketed. There could be some sort of, Pisces is a very self-sabotaging energy and victim. It's very victim in Pisces. And when we have this as a lunar, which is very emotional in the ninth house, um, I don't love this eclipse just for like society. And I don't want to like get into that. If you want me to do like a mundane astrology forecast for like the United States or for your country, whatever, I could do that. In that way, I don't love this Pisces lunar eclipse. But for you guys, there's going to be a very personal shift in your belief and your faith. Again, it could be a leveling up, it could be the way that you're thinking. Now, Pisces also, because it's ruled by Neptune, it also does rule disease and disease. And the ninth house does represent the manifestation of father energy. So with this eclipse on the 28th, there could be some sort of change in the health of father. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but there could be some sort of change in that place as well. So just to give you some different perspectives, obviously I'm going to be discussing them a lot more deeply as we get closer to it. But the message of 2026 for you guys is that your worth no longer needs justification. Cancer, it just doesn't. You don't have to be the person to go above and beyond all the time. You just don't need to do that. You don't. People don't expect it from you anymore, and you just can't be that anymore. Okay, my friends, I hope this helped, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Leo, 2026 is a great year for you to expand through being present in something, okay, in your relationships, in your job. I just want to start off by just acknowledging Jupiter going into your first house on June 30th for a year. All right. This is, first of all, this is initiating a 12-year personal growth cycle. It's been 12 years since Jupiter has been in your sign, and Saturn and Neptune are going to be refining your belief system in that ninth house energy. Right. And Uranus reshapes your friendships in the 11th house. So you have a lot of just like a lot of shifting going on very internally, where when you're actually in a situation, you're going to feel a lot more present, more comfortable in your own skin by the end of the year. And now with Jupiter, when it comes to relationships, so that Jupiter energy entering your first house, you have to understand that your magnetism is going to be increasing, right? But superficial attention no longer satisfies you. It's not. This is a year where you're going to be craving more. You're going to be craving depth. You're going to be craving loyalty, shared growth, not just like what looks good, not just what's, again, kind of dancing on the surface. And for you guys, Juno is going to be clarifying the whole purpose of relationships for you this year. Partnerships must support your evolution, right? They're not there just for, you know, just to be there. They're not there just to admire it, right? You're not in a relationship with somebody to just admire them or admire the relationship. It's got to be depth there. And with Uranus in the 11th house, which is very exalted because that's, astrologically, that's where Uranus lives, there may be some sudden shifts in friendships, in social circles, in your goals and gains, in where it is that you're going, helping you, though, to align with people who see you clearly rather than idealize you, rather than seeing the version of you that they want to see, right? There's a lot of clarity here. That's the thing with Uranus. Look, Uranus is exalted in the 11th. He's very revolutionary. He wants to bring that revolutionary from like the toes up to the nose kind of change. This is not a light change. This is, so a lot of you are going to be like shaking the dead wood off the tree when it comes to your friendships and when it comes to people who you're connected to. These kind of things. So Uranus, the 11th house rather, also does, as far as people go, it's older siblings, stepchildren, grandchildren, daughter-in-law, son-in-law. And with Uranus in there, you can suddenly have a grandchild. You can suddenly have a daughter-in-law or son-in-law, or something very sudden, something very reverse-like can happen in the life of an older sibling as well. Now, regarding your career, this is definitely a personal growth year that naturally elevates your professional visibility. So anything that's connected to like leadership, having agency, this arises because of who you're becoming, not what you're chasing, who you're becoming, you're becoming a different version of yourself this year. And this Saturn and Neptune energy in your ninth house refines your beliefs, your ethics, your long-term vision. Remember, ninth house is the house of growth. Saturn does not love being in the ninth house. I'm not going to lie. He doesn't love it because I want you to think about like a really old, wise grandpa sitting in the house of a really energetic, like 20-year-old, very modern 20-year-old, right? They have a lot to learn from each other. And they will. They will learn from each other, but naturally they kind of irritate each other, right? Because Saturn is all about do it again and do it right. And Jupiter's like wants quick results, right? And so in that ninth house of expansion, you have to understand that there's going to be this evolution of your energy, especially over the course of this first year, when it comes to those ninth house energies, right? And just from a very foundational kind of thing, if you're dealing with foreign land and foreign cultures, doing any kind of foreign travel, importing and exporting, publishing, marketing, advertising, wanting to get something out there, right? That Saturn Neptune energy in the ninth house is very solid because it wants whatever you're getting out there, it wants it to be stable, responsible, and long lasting. So if you have 3 steps forward, 2 step back kind of experiences during this transit, Don't be mad at it. It's bringing you into a much more solid space, right? Because your career success is going to follow when your work aligns with the values, the education, the creative philosophy, the patience. Authenticity becomes your brand and not just about very like, no more flash in the pan kind of ideas. And I'm not suggesting that you are. It's just Leo energy is the energy of the entertainer, of the person in front of the room, right? All eyes on you, that kind of thing. But it's going to deepen, right? You're deepening, and people are going to be seeing this, especially when it comes to your career, your reputation, and where it is that you want to go. Now, having to do with your health, your energy is definitely going to be increasing this year, which is a great thing, but be smart about it. You want to pace your energy so you don't have burnout. And I know you're not really feeling all that energy right now. You will, I promise. Come the spring into the summer, your energy is going to be coming back. Now, we do have Chiron going into Taurus for you in your 10th house from about June 19th, 20th. It depends on where in the world you live. It's kind of happening overnight there. And then September to the middle of September. So in that 10th house, professional visibility is going to ultimately end up triggering old wounds around recognition, around authority, and being valued for your work. So you may question whether success is actually safe because you've had periods of success and then those periods were taken away from you, or you went through periods where things were really good and then they weren't. So here, healing is going to come through redefining success on your own terms and not what you used to think it was. So if you used to think success means having a lot of money, success means having the biggest house, success means having the biggest sandcastle on the beach, right? Those are very, leonine things, right? It's very in that space. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just not who you are anymore. That's not going to work for you with Chiron and Taurus. And again, it's just a little dip in, but once we hit 2027, April 2027, we're going to start to feel this more full time for a 7-year transit where, remember, whenever Chiron transits, it's about bringing false narratives to our attention and understanding in Taurus, it's specifically about money, our sense of self or self-esteem, and what it is that we feel like we need to feel a strong foundation. Those ideas are going to be rewritten in your own energy, okay? And speaking of rewriting, Juno's certainly going to be rewriting your public commitments and what it is that you're willing to give people, do for people, all of those things, right? It's very much going to be just a total rewriting here. Now, Sirius is going to be nourishing your ambition without burnout. Sirius is going to be so terribly helpful for you because Sirius is going to demand some sort of balance and you're going to be comfortable doing it. Palace is going to be lighting up this idea of ethical leadership clarity, what it means to make good long-term decisions with everyone in mind, being very clear, being very responsible. It's not only about you, it's not only about someone else. You're able to look at the long term. And Vesta has you very focused on contributing in a very meaningful way to whatever it is that you're involved in, whether it's your work or whether it's your relationship or whether it's your family, whatever it is. And guys, honestly, this year for you, it's all about you deserve respect. You don't only deserve the applause, right? You deserve that respect as well. Now, as far as the eclipses, a general look at them, February 17th, we have the Aquarius solar in the 7th house. So this could bring a new relationship. This could bring a new contract. This could bring a new way of working because the 7th house is also your energetic output at work. 7th house is also our doctor. So it could actually bring a new doctor relationship into your life, okay? That's going to be very meaningful over the long term. And we have March 3rd. That's the Virgo lunar, and that's going to be happening in your 2nd house, bringing you a financial reset in the month of March. Then we have August 12th. We have the Leo solar in the 1st house. That's going to be a big one for you guys. There's no question. Right after your solar return, you have these back-to-back eclipses. That Leo solar in the 1st is identity rebirth. And then on the 28th of August, you have the Pisces lunar in your 8th house, which is all about emotional release, right? There's going to be some sort of release there. So maybe you are releasing a relationship. You're finalizing some sort of legal situation. You are paying off debt. You're paying your taxes. You are doing some, you should be paying them before that, but you get my idea, or you get the idea. Something like that, okay? And you're expanding, but you're expanding by being real. This is like a year for you to just be so real and not to be louder or flashy or anything like that. It's a year of authenticity for you guys. That's the best way to go anyway. So hopefully you choose that path to have the best experiences. Thank you so much for joining me, Leo. I hope this was helpful in some way, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Virgo. So 2026 for you guys is really about surrender, trust, and emotional depth. Oh, this is going to be a little uncozy for you guys, but man, is the payoff going to be great. This is a year where you're allowing yourself to be really vulnerable. Now, that Saturn and Neptune energy are going to be activating your eighth house, and this is going to be forcing vulnerability. Just is. Uranus disrupts career structures in the 10th house, and Jupiter in the 12th are going to be supporting a lot of rest and a lot of inner healing. Okay. So some of you may be, let me just look at your chart here. So, we have that Pluto energy. It's, working with Juno actually in that sixth house. So Pluto does bring this idea of change and transformation. Obviously, you know that. And it is going to be opposing this Jupiter energy. So there can be some sort of expansion having to do with some sort of health issue, some sort of work situation going on. So, we really need to understand that, right? Having to do with career, that 10th house, your professional life has to destabilize in order to liberate you this year, Virgo. Is that Uranus energy in the 10th house is going to bring unexpected changes. It's going to bring a new role, um, a sudden exit in a job, or some sort of unconventional opportunity for sure can absolutely happen with it opposing the fourth house. Maybe you're going to start working from home, or you're going to no longer work from home. You're going to go into the office, or there could be some sort of change there. But these shifts push you towards freedom rather than predictability. And Jupiter in your 12th house suggests success comes through rest and strategic retreat or behind the scenes work. Burnout is so not a badge of honor, Virgo. It's just not. And you guys really have to be careful of that. Recovery is really productive this year. Okay. Now, having to do with relationships, whether it's a significant other or a friendship or even, anybody that you end up having some sort of close connection to, honestly becomes unavoidable this year. Intimacy is unavoidable this year. But that Saturn and Neptune in the eighth house, those energies together are going to dissolve emotional armor and expose patterns of control, of overfunctioning, of guardedness. Relationships that can't handle vulnerability are strained. Because this is the thing. If you've always been the one to hold it together and suddenly you're in a space where you need to be vulnerable and they're not used to you like that, and then they start falling apart because you have to be vulnerable, goodbye. Honestly, especially with Juno. This year, Juno is really highlighting this idea of balanced power and shared responsibility for you guys. So trust replaces analysis for you guys. I'm going to say that again. Trust replaces analysis. Oh, that sounds very uncomfortable, right? So you guys are very good at analyzing things. Very, very good. It's like you're an earth energy, but you're ruled by Mercury. So you're very good at getting down to the nuts and bolts and the pragmatics of things. Very, very good. But when you allow yourself to be seen, meaning vulnerable and not perfect, and not like you have it all together, connections deep and profoundly. Virgo, it's okay to not have your shit together. It's okay if you need help for a hot minute. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? And this year is going to be teaching you that. You know, so when it comes to health, it's rest and emotional processing directly improve your physical health. Kind of just recalibrating that inner world. Now, you do have that Chiron and Taurus going into your ninth house from June 20th all the way to the middle of September. And Chiron's going to be exposing wounds around your belief system and meaning, like what things are supposed to mean. What does it all mean? What do relationships mean? What is my work supposed to mean? wounds around education, around moral worth, around your ability to grow in life. Also, ninth house is very connected to father energy. So you may confront inherited belief systems that taught you to earn goodness. You have to be a certain way and show up in a certain way and do in order to be good, good, good. And that's just not true because healing comes through this wisdom of recognition rather than through perfection. And when I say wisdom, it's like recognizing process, recognizing what it is that you do bring to the table, recognizing all of your beautiful qualities. Because, guys, listen, I always say this about Virgo, right? Those of you watching me for a while, Virgo's the one sign that you say, "Hey, Virgo, how you doing?" People say, "How you doing?" And then they don't wait for the answer. And the reason is, it's like they'll say, "Hey, how you doing?" and then walk away. They don't wait for the answer. Why? Because Virgo always has their act together. Even though you probably don't, but that's what you present to people. That's what you want people to think. That's what people automatically assume about you, you know? And that's a lot to carry. You're not going to be able to carry that anymore. And it's going to feel a lot more comfortable this year for you to just, unload that burden. Now, as far as the main asteroids that are going to be hitting your energy, Juno is really going to be lighting up your commitment to lived truth, your lived truth. Like what is real, what is true, who's got your back, who doesn't, what's possible, what isn't. Really nice, very supportive energy. Sirius is also going to be nourishing your faith rather than your discipline of this, I have to do this, right? You're definitely going to be deepening your faith this year. And it could be in God or it could be in your belief in people. It could be, however it's hitting your chart this year. But there is certainly with that very, very bright energy of Sirius, the way it's lighting up your chart throughout the year, there's going to be an increase in nourishment in the idea of faith and belief. And then Pallas. Palace is bringing really cool things to each of the rising signs, I have to tell you. But for you guys, this idea of philosophical discernment is going to really, really deepen and understand like where are you getting too caught up in your own head with something and where does something make the most sense? Like philosophically, that just means looking at the progression of things, the facts of something, how something is rolling out, right? The reality of things. You're going to be able to discern that even more deeply. And you guys are very smart to begin with, but this just brings it to a much deeper level. And Vesta is going to be increasing your devotion to wisdom, and to being connected philosophically rather than to just being right. It doesn't matter how right you are this year. It doesn't. It's more about the wisdom and the morality of a situation as well. So, truth for you this year, it has to be lived. Your truth has to be lived, not proven, this whole year. Now, as far as the eclipses go for you guys, we have the first one in February, February 17th in Aquarius. That's the solar in the sixth house. This could bring new work or new wellness system, some sort of new situation going on with your health could hit the scene. Remember, it's an eclipse, something eclipses out for something else to eclipse in. So there could be the realization, but then there's some sort of treatment for it. You get the idea. Then we have the March 3rd Virgo lunar eclipse. This is obviously happening in your first house. So some sort of identity culmination. March is going to be a very important month for you. Closer to the end of March and to the beginning of April, actually, you're going to be feeling it a lot more. um, kind of coming into your own. This newer version of yourself is going to become a lot more palatable in your own energy. And then August, which is, your solar return, beginning of your solar return, August into September. August 12th, when we're still in Leo, that Leo solar is going to be happening in your 12th house. So we some sort of spiritual closure. Okay. Leo also rules your children. This is happening in the 12th house. So there might be some sort of like release of your children. Maybe one of your kids are getting married or they're doing something, or something happens where you feel like you have to change the dynamic of the relationship. This does not have to be a bad thing. This could be a very good thing, in fact. But then we have August 28th, the Pisces lunar in the seventh house. So some sort of truth having to do with relationships. It could be with a significant other. It could be with a boss or bosses. Whatever it is, though, those back-to-back August eclipses are really going to be activated into the month of September. So there's a spiritual closure, this relationship truth. There's this general release of control, this gain of wisdom. And we get a Mercury retrograde during that fall as well. But once we hit like the middle to the end of October, then we go November, December, things are just going to be a lot more, at that point, which I think is really great. So that is what I have for you, Virgo. I hope these general messages were helpful in some way, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we have rolling out for us. And I will see you guys next time. Take care, Virgo. Bye-bye. Hi, Libra. This year, all about relationship integrity. So connected to relationship integrity because you have the Saturn and Neptune energy in the seventh house defining partnership truth. And then you have the Jupiter in the 11th house expanding your community, your goals and gains, your future. You're thinking about the future. You're thinking a lot about the future. And then with Uranus shifting your beliefs in the ninth house, which is where Jupiter lives astrologically, is in the ninth house. There's a lot of growth-minded, forward-thinking ideas, and you want your relationships to be solid. Now, before we get into like career and before we get into relationship any more deeply, I just want to mention regarding your health, hormonal and emotional balance absolutely requires care. And this can be very connected to what's going on in the area of relationships as well, right? We want to watch our stress level. We want to watch these things. But generally speaking, I do want to say that Libra rising, more than any of the other rising signs, you guys are especially vulnerable this particular year to hormonal and emotional, the need to balance or rebalance these energies. So guys, I say this from such a place of love. If you're having a hard time keeping it together, please don't be afraid to ask for help. Whether it's going and speaking to a doctor or a therapist or somebody, okay? You don't need to go through it alone, okay? If depending on what else is in your chart, obviously, these are general messages, but depending on what else is in like your sixth and seventh, well, your fifth, sixth, and seventh house, depending on what else is in there, it could be experienced a little differently, right? But just in general, it's a general commentary. I wanted to get out. Now, going back to the idea of relationships, such a defining year this year is with that Saturn and Neptune. Relationships are just no longer sustained by skirting the issue, being polite, the potential of someone changing, you know what I mean? Or even any kind of emotional avoidance where you see it, you know it, you feel it, and then you just don't bother talking about it, okay? This year, your bonds either deepen into mature commitment or they dissolve quietly, but very decisively. Because you're learning the difference between harmony and honesty. You do harmony really well. You're very good at that. You could keep it down, keep everything, tidy. If you need to, you could do that. You just don't want to do it anymore. You don't. Not the way that Juno is playing. Juno is playing out in your chart this year. Juno is highlighting vows, contracts, long-term relationship choices, especially those tied to shared values or some sort of future direction, like a spouse, like a long-term relationship. But honestly, this is even for a boss. If you've been in a job for a long time, there's no middle ground here. Clarity is replacing compromise. I'm telling you by the fall, it's either going to be one or the other. There's no question. Now, when it comes to your career growth this year comes through other people. It comes through collaboration, community, shared vision. Is with that Jupiter energy moving through your 11th house, professional opportunities arise through networks, referrals, some sort of like collective project, rather than through doing anything totally solo, totally on your own. All right. This is an excellent, excellent year for working with other people, organizations, creative teams, advocacy groups, right? Because that 11th house is very much about advocacy, speak for the masses. Also, any sort of audience-based platform, very good. Remember, the 11th house is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus rules technology. Aquarius rules the masses. Jupiter is about expansion and getting some messages out there. So for some of you, if you're thinking about, I don't know, starting a YouTube channel or blog or a vlog or something like that, really nice energy. But you do want to avoid any sort of contract that you feel is like not clear, where the boundaries aren't clear, it's vague in some way, or it's somehow unequal in having to do with responsibilities and you sort of like unequal partnership. That's just like no bueno for you this year. Okay. Now, Palace supports strategic diplomacy for you all year long. So your ability to negotiate fairly becomes like legit a professional asset for you, Libra, like really more than any other sign. So you're very good at that. And success follows alignment. It does not follow appeasement. And I know most of you are most comfortable with that. And if you say, no, that's not me, keep in mind, these are general messages, but Libra in general, the archetype 100% is very much about conflict avoidance, appeasement. Let me just say what I need to say just to get past this moment. And then you might like bitch to your friends or, go punch a pillow in your room or something like that. But, in the moment, you like things to be nice and pretty because you're ruled by Virgo, by Venus, you know. But we have that Chiron and Taurus energy as well. It's in that eighth house for you. Let me just double check here and come up too. Yeah. So it's going into your eighth house. It's going to be in there with Mars for a minute. So this is going to be highlighting wounds around trust, intimacy, shared resources. So like your husband or your wife's money, um, um, any sort of insurance payout, debt, taxes, investments. The eighth house also rules the stock market. Shared, but it's sex and intimacy, right? It's shared like that energy together. So you might end up confronting because it's Chiron and he's the wounded warrior who has to make us feel a certain way before we can realize that what we're feeling is actually a false narrative that we need to figure out how we can get in front of, right? So Chiron highlights this idea of fears of dependence or loss. Healing here comes through learning that vulnerability does not equal danger. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to communicate that. There could be a lot of concern around shared resources where it's like, oh, my partner's not making enough money, or if they are, I feel like they're hiding some, or they're sharing it, but I still don't feel comfortable. I don't feel like we have enough. I don't feel confident, whatever it is. Okay. So that's got to be confronted and that's going to be worked out. Now, some other asteroids that are going to be working, I did mention briefly Juno, but Juno's going to be rewriting your intimacy contracts all year long. Ceres is going to be nourishing you through emotional honesty all year long. You're starting to feel it now. You're feeling this push, but you just don't want to keep the lid on it anymore. It's not popping off yet. And let's make sure it doesn't pop off because when it pops off, that could be like explosive and we don't need that, right? Because there's no value add in that. There's no value add. You want depth and you want emotional honesty, and a good way of getting that is to actually sitting down and asking for it. But you know what, though, also, Libra, that means that you have to be that way too. What you are craving, you're going to have a hard time being. You don't realize it because you could say, no, no, I talk, I speak. Yeah, but you have a lot of fear-based energy that's going to be activated this year, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But right? It's okay to allow yourself to feel vulnerable. And the more vulnerable you are, they're going to feel more comfortable to be vulnerable as well, right? But you have to be strategic, and Pallas Athena is going to be helping you out all day long, all through 2026 with this very strategic boundary clarity. What do boundaries mean? And you're going to be getting a lot smarter with that. Pallas has not been able to help you. Pallas is going to start helping you within the next couple of weeks. So this is a good thing. Now, Vesta has a deep devotion to emotional depth in your energy this year. So that's the thing. That Vesta energy, it's just going to be like Libra, no, 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 no. We can't go surface anymore. We got to go deeper. We got to go deeper, right? Vesta is going to be telling you trust can be built without surrendering yourself, without erasing yourself. Can happen. Now we have the eclipse energies. February 17th is the first one, that Aquarius solar, and the 5th. This is very creative, very romantic spark. This could have something to do with your children, right? Especially because it's solar. The solar energy rules the fifth house. It's in your fifth house. Falling in love, love affairs, romance, children, monetizable talents. Maybe you're going to be realizing you want to start a new business. Maybe some sort of situation comes up in the life of one of your kids. Um, but remember, it's an eclipse. If something gets eclipsed out in order to get for something else to get eclipsed in, right? So there's sort of like switching out of growth energies here. And then we have March 3rd, we have the Virgo lunar eclipse in the 12th. By the way, I'm going to be doing deeper videos on these the closer we get. That Virgo March 12th is going to be happening in your it's March 3rd happening in your 12th house. This is going to be very much about emotional release, letting go of things that you've been harboring and holding on to. You know that you have to do that. Fears around work, fears around health, fears around uh, instability, feels around and fears around vulnerability. These things are going to be very powerfully released, right? Now, it's hitting on March 3rd, but it's going to be rolling out over the next 6 months. Now, August, we have back-to-back eclipses. We have on the 12th, the Leo solar, and the 11th, which is very connected to new alliances, new goals and gains. Um, could be some sort of new beginning because of a child, something like that, some sort of new beginning because of a new business, because of some sort of creative project. Really nice there. August 28th is the Pisces lunar, and that's happening in your sixth house. So some sort of like work closure situation or health closure situation. There is going to be some sort of eclipsing out, so something can be eclipsed in, right? Now, what's happening in Pisces, the lunar energy in the sixth house of health, and it is happening during Virgo season. So I do feel like for a lot of you, it is going to be very connected to this idea of health and or your day-to-day work environment, right? But for you guys, you have to just understand that this year is about honest love, replacing polite compromise. No more of that polite compromise stuff. Everybody loves it because you're like a no stress person to be around because of that. But this is the year to get really real with yourself and really embrace honest love and honesty just in all of your relationships. Okay, my friends. So I hope that helped, Libra, in some way. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye. Hi, Scorpio. So for you, this is a big, powerful year for you guys. Lots of conscious power. I just really like this energy for you. By the end, you're going to be so much stronger. We have that Saturn and Neptune restructuring your daily life in the sixth house, restructuring the way you take care of your health, restructuring your daily work environment and your responsibilities. And that Uranus in the eighth is going to be transforming intimacy. Remember, Uranus is connected to sudden reversals in that eighth house of intimacy, of shared resources, shared energy. It's where we become a we energy. It's where we master something. Uranus is very smart, though. He's highly intelligent. And it's for that reason that he's such a revolutionary energy. And while no responsible astrologer can ever say exactly what Uranus is going to do, because we just can't, it's just his nature, We just have to say that for sure. What we do know is that he's going to be pushing for something different and some sort of change. And the eighth house is where this reliance on another energy can be having to do with money, having to do with happiness and joy, right? So it's going to the whole idea of intimacy and shared resources is going to be transformed because it needs to be. Now, Jupiter is elevating your career in the 10th house. This is just what it's going to be. I'm just looking at your chart here. Yes, definitely going to be activating that energy starting in the at the end of June for one full year. This has not been in your 10th house for 12 years, my friends. So this is a very nice energy. Now you might not be working. So what else is the 10th year? The 10th house. 10th house is the manifestation of mother energy. It's also your general goals in life, meaning where is your arrow pointed? Where is your arrow pointed? Um, Very important to understand when it comes to your career, your public reputation, your standing in the world. What are my long-term goals, right? And with Jupiter in there, you have a lot of energy supporting you. You just really do. Um, Recognition for a lot of you, leadership opportunities, public credibility all expands, but only if your work reflects integrity. If you are working from a space of integrity, when it comes to either your career or where it is that you want to go in the world, this is not about, chasing authority. It's about embodying it. It's not about chasing anyone to finish your sentences or to be able to step in and save you, right? This is not at all about that. It's about embodying your own agency, and you're going to be able to do that quite effectively by the end, especially by the end of the year. Now, this is not to say that you don't feel like you have agency in one part of your life or the other. The 10th house is an angular house. It's the most public and highest point in our chart. Yes, it could be career, but it could just be your overall direction in life. So, maybe you're working really hard, but you're like, oh, I don't know about relationship, or I don't know where I'm going to end up living, or you know what I mean? That's like, that's that arrow that's pointing towards your future. Now, that Saturn and Neptune in the sixth is certainly going to be demanding sustainable work habits, health habits, being very structured in your responsibility. Structure is a big deal for you guys this year, okay? Now, burnout is a signal to you. If you're feeling like really burnt out, very fatigued, overly exhausted, you have to restructure your systems. And by your systems, I mean, how are you taking care of yourself? Are you getting enough sleep? What food are you eating? How are you exercising? How are you taking care of your mental health? You're not pushing harder through this. You're trying to find balance. Now, the Pluto retrograde in Aquarius is going to be prompting a reassessment of your professional ambitions, your long-term ambitions that are tied to legacy, to power, to family expectations, right? You have to reassess all of that. What you thought was once going to be the answer to these things is not, right, through this reassessment. And there's going to be you being able to exercise this strategic refinement that's going to end up leading to your long-term authority and your long-term agency, right? You're going to be figuring out what you have to do in order to not. Okay, I almost want to back up here for a second because it's not like you're asking for a lot in the first place, but what you thought might potentially be the answer to a beautifully laid out life plan that made perfect sense to you a couple of years ago is simply not able to happen in the way that you thought it was. And now you're going to be in a period of both acceptance and refinement. You're going to be tweaking the way in which you look at things when it comes to shared resources, intimacy, where we come a we energy, um, when it comes to retirement, when it comes to shared resources, insurance payout, inheritance. There's going to be this tweaking, this changing of the lens through which you've been looking at these things through. But at the end of it, you're going to be the one who you're going to recognize that you have a lot more agency than you realize. Now, when it comes to your relationships, the power dynamics come into very sharp focus here. And with that Uranus in the eighth, this is going to be, he's disruptive, right? So this disrupts any old patterns of control, of secrecy, of emotional merging. Relationships that rely on like unspoken leverage, having to do with maybe money or intimacy, or I give you this, you do that, from anything like that, or fear-based attachment, where, you're staying in something just out of fear because you feel like if you don't have it, it won't be able to last. That can't continue unchanged. It just can't. So that's going to be changing. You have to understand that because Juno is really going to be emphasizing mutual empowerment. And intimacy must be freely chosen here, not earned through anything like we've been together for so long, or this is what I expect from you, or this is what you're supposed to do, or this is what you've been doing. Whether it's you towards somebody or somebody towards you, it doesn't matter. Because when honesty replaces strategy, the trust deepens rapidly, rapidly. There's got to be a lot of honesty that hits the forefront. As far as Chiron going into Taurus, it's June 19th, 20th, depending on where in the world you live, all the way to the middle of September, just doing a little dip into Taurus, and he'll go back into Aries for another year or so. But relationship wounds are going to become very visible, especially around, for you guys, especially around the idea of being valued, chosen. For a lot of you, this is going to be a big one. That Chiron and Taurus, the idea of are you choosing me, or am I an option for you? Are you choosing me? Or maybe you are the one that they chose, but are they giving you enough of themselves? Or are you on the bottom of the totem pole there? You know? This is this idea, all of these things, all of these wounds are going to be, valued, or are you chosen, or, are you being stabilized by another person? Chiron challenges these things. Healing comes through mutual reliability rather than that intensity, right? You guys are a very intense sign, but it's that reliability, it's the calmness, it's the quiet, it's the I can trust you, it's the yes, I am here, yes, I choose you. This is what I want. And honestly, for a lot of you, maybe since not everybody's in relationship, in that seventh house, that could even be the same deal with your boss, where you could be feeling like just not recognized, not appreciated, not seen, something like that. And, that's not going to be able to keep flying because all year long, Juno is very connected to commitment. So commitment equality becomes really essential across the board. Across the board, all of your relationships. The idea of equality is going to become a very big deal. Ceres is going to be burning very, very bright, and you're going to be relearning mutual care, how to connect with people in a very beautiful, empathetic, connected, even way, right? How to actually do that. Now, Pallas Athena is going to make your relational strategies very, very clear what it is you need to do for that intimate relationship, for that friendship, whatever it is. Palace is making it very clear for you all year long. You might not feel it right now, but you will in a few weeks, right? Palace will start activating that part of your chart. And then Vesta is very connected to devotion, right? And devotion to a balanced partnership. Like you're 100% in it if you're in something that's devoted equally. If it's not in an equal kind of thing, if there's not equality, if you don't feel chosen, if you don't feel seen, if you don't feel respected and all of that, that's where the challenges are going to end up hitting. Scorpio, love does not need to be painful to be real. It just does not need to be that for you guys. But as far as the eclipses, we had the first one is February 17th in Aquarius, and that's happening in your fourth house of home, property, family. So you'll be getting a new home where there's some sort of new family path. Maybe you're thinking about selling your home, investing in property and real estate. There could be some sort of change going on with a sibling as well, somebody who you were raised with, somebody who lives currently within the home that you're in now. There's some sort of change. And the eclipsing out and the eclipsing in could just be surrounding your ability to feel emotionally secure and present in your life as well. So that would not be a bad thing, right? Where you're starting to develop a new level of emotional security. Now, on March 3rd, we have the Virgo lunar eclipse in the 11th house. So for a lot of you, this could be friendship closures. This could be deciding not to hang with a certain group of people anymore. This could be I feel like it's very networky connected for you guys, but you're just realizing like open enemies all day long, because it's in Virgo, right? And it's in that 11th house. So, you could have a couple of open enemies, right? Where they're saying one thing to your face or saying something else behind your back, whatever it is, and you deciding to just generally, as I always say, shake the dead wood off your tree and only the real ones stick and the other ones just kind of fall by the wayside when it comes to this eclipse. Now, in August, we have two. We have one on the 12th, in Leo solar eclipse in your 10th house, and that's going to be about a career rebirth for a lot of you. Um, this could be, I love this energy for you, especially because it's kind of working with the August 28th one, which is the Pisces lunar eclipse in the fifth house. So there could be a real shift, a real romantic shift. And I want to say this as precisely as I can. Some of you are likely going to be deciding to leave relationships. And if you leave a relationship during this shift, it's going to be the best thing for you. Because if you're leaving it, it does not have the wherewithal to go the long term anyway. So you have all of this other supportive energy around you to really help bolster you up into this next phase. So again, it's got to be all about truth and no more making decisions based on fear, based on time in, all of that, right? The power for you is rooted in truth, and that's going to be replacing your survival mode energy. Okay, guys? So I hope this was helpful. I think this is a very empowering year, Scorpio, very important year, honestly, for our Scorpio friends. So I hope that was helpful in some way. See you next time. Bye bye. Hi, Sagittarius. I hope you guys are doing great. For you guys, 2026 is going to be such a year of living your truth. It just is. We have that Saturn and Neptune mature your creativity in the fifth house. I love this for those of you who are thinking about opening your own business. You have some sort of creative project you want to get out there. Um, Great for relationship as well. Great for how you show up in relationship. Now, Uranus is liberating relationships in that seventh house for you. So Uranus is about sudden reversals, right? And Uranus is very smart, very empowering, very revolutionary. So wanting something very different in the area of relationship. So this could be a deepening. The reason why I think it's going to go more in that way is because Pluto is transiting in that third house for you guys, which really, changing the way that you think, you communicate, the way that you process, just in general in life. And you're going to be able to be, and because that's trining the seventh house, you're going to be able to be more communicative in relationship, want to feel a deeper connection, want things to be different. Now, the Uranus is also, it might not be connected to relationships at all, because that Uranus in the seventh could also be connected to contracts as well as your energetic output at work. So you might be doing something very different having to do with your day-to-day work environment. But it could be some sort of sudden contract out of nowhere, for either a business proposition, or it could be a sudden marriage, or for some of you, it could be a sudden divorce. Though I don't think so, because Jupiter is really expanding the horizons through that ninth house. And that ninth house has to do with lawyers, legalities. That's where like the workings of like divorce would hang out. And Jupiter is just too positively aspected for me to go in that direction, though it does depend on what else is in your chart. It could actually be improving relationships for you more than anything else this year. Now, as far as your career goes, there's a lot of indicators that show me professional expansion coming through education, travel, publishing, coaching, some sort of cross-cultural work, any sort of like movie work as well, anything like that, as Jupiter moves through that ninth house of publishing, marketing, advertising, getting something out there to the world, right? Your expertise becomes visible when you teach what you have lived and not what you've memorized here, okay? So that Saturn and that Neptune in the fifth mature creative output. There's no question about that. So turning some sort of passion project into something sustainable. And that Uranus in the seventh brings unexpected collaborators or some sort of contract shift. So flexibility and honesty keep career momentum really strong all year long. And going back to the relationship situation, freedom becomes the foundation of love. And freedom for you is super important, right? You guys are the energy of wanderlust. It doesn't mean you don't love to be faithful in relationship, but you always have this wanderlust in your energy. And with Uranus in the seventh, he ends up breaking open the stagnant relationship patterns that end up inviting authenticity, even if that means refining commitment entirely. Partnerships thrive when both people are allowed to evolve independently, and Juno challenges any sort of outdated promises and rewards that relationships honor truth over tradition or over all of those promises, because this is absolutely a year of honesty, honest love, not comfortable agreement. So even if a lot of the conversations are uncomfortable, they're pure, they're authentic, they're honest. Even if you feel a little uncomfortable in it in the moment, you're going to be so much happier that that's the way that you're naturally functioning now moving forward. Now, you do have Chiron and Taurus going into your sixth house from June 20th until the middle of September. Chiron reveals how self-worth has been tied to productivity for you. Now, physical symptoms may mirror burnout. Healing occurs through honoring your body's pace and redefining what usefulness honestly means. Now, we always want to be careful of Chiron in that sixth house energy. We want to be careful there, right? Because sixth house is our health, mental, physical, emotion. Tauruses rule the inner body, it rules our organs. So a lot of times when Chiron is transiting and we're not really honoring our body, we can end up having some flare-ups. We can end up having some challenges that end up manifesting. Taurus rules the thyroid. Sixth house rules the digestive tract. So it could be some sort of like inflammatory responses that end up impacting the digestive tract. So if you are having anything like that, you have to really look at how are you pacing yourself when it comes to your schedule and your life, because that needs to be kind of balanced out, right, as we progress through the year. Now, as far as some other asteroids, talked about Chiron. Chiron's technically a centaur now. He's not an asteroid anymore. It doesn't really matter. But Juno is all about, for you all year long, giving you a lot of really beautiful commitment energy to sustainable routines. So you're going to be able to have the energy to go through to get through what it is that you need to do. Ceres is burning very bright when it comes to the energy of nourishment for you, nourishment for your body, for your mind, just nourishment for your life in general, but only and if only you're doing things through consistency. So you're consistent with eating good foods, getting rest, going to the doctor if you need that, doing whatever your routine is, exercise, all of those things. If you're not consistent, the ultimate result of that could be extreme fatigue. So you want to be careful of that. What I love about Pallas Athena for you guys this year, it's about like this redesign of the way that you think, your system of intellect, the way that you process things down. There's this redesigning. Why? Because you have Pluto also redesigning your area of communication in the third house. Okay. So very important to note there. Now, Vesta is very lit up for you. This has very connected to devotional energy, devotion to daily integrity, not being too keen on promising something flippantly that you're not going to be able to follow through with, being a lot more careful with things that you say, things that you promise, because by nature you guys are very optimistic. And what comes along with a very optimistic energy is that very often, Sagittarius can find themselves putting the cart before the horse, giving some promises before they understand that they could actually do it, these kind of things. But that's not really going to be the deal this year. This year, you're still going to be optimistic, but you're just going to be speaking from a place of, and I don't want to say that by promising those things and putting the cart before the horse, you're lacking integrity, but you're going to be a lot more careful because you're starting to realize this year how much weight your words really do have and how people do do count on you in certain ways, if that makes sense. But just pulling it back a little bit and also recognizing, Sag, that rest is not failure. You might not be able to do everything and function the way that you have been up to this point for several reasons, for the Chiron in the sixth energy, your energy might just be, you know, not what it's been, right? Nothing wrong with that. You're still extremely productive. But by saying, I need to rest or I need to take care of myself in this way, that is not failure. That is just being really committed to yourself, okay? Now, having to do with the eclipses, let's talk about the first one, February 17th. It's Aquarius solar eclipse in the third house. So we have that going on in your area of communication and mental processing as well. So this can certainly bring some sort of new message in Aquarius that's connected to your goals and your gains. It could bring some sort of new platform that you're dealing with. It could bring some sort of new webinar, some sort of new seminar, learning system. You're learning something different. You're communicating with new things. You're dealing with new groups, right? Because it's an Aquarius, which rules networks. So you could be, so you might be making a new friend. You also might be finding that you're sort of pulling away from some old friends in your life as well, um, that are just not in alignment with who you are anymore. And not that you're going to go through the drama of breaking up a relationship, but it's just realizing that they're not part of your central crew anymore in the same way that maybe they once were, right? And then we have the March 3rd, the Virgo lunar, and that's going to be happening in your 10th house. So some sort of career chapter is going to end. But remember, something gets eclipsed out, something gets eclipsed in. So I do feel like there's going to be some sort of change going on there. I do feel like for the most part, it is going to be an addition. Looking at that August 12th, we have that Leo solar eclipse in the 9th house. This is a new world view. This could be a new project getting out there to the world. This eclipse could bring a change to your politics, a change to your faith system, a change to what it is that you're studying, a change to, um, again, your moral code, your moral compass, how it is that you are looking to expand yourself, Leo, in that way. Also, the Leo solar eclipse in the 9th house here can also bring a really great vacation to a foreign land where you're experiencing things that you never experienced before. And it's really amazing because Leo rules the 5th house of vacations, and the 9th house does rule foreign lands and foreign travel, right? Leo solar in the 9th can also indicate meeting somebody new in relationship that is of a different ethnicity than you. Okay, could also mean that as well. Now, the August 28th Pisces lunar eclipse in the 4th, this is emotional home release. So there could be you no longer feeling as vulnerable when it comes to your emotional security. There could be something changing there. There could be an eclipsing out having to do with I feel like for you guys, though, it's going to be more about like letting go of old ways of thinking when it comes to your most important relationships, when it comes to family, when it comes, you just because that Pisces energy is releasing things that we have to let go of, right? So it's like this emotional release around home, family, but it could also be around property. You may feel very motivated to move. It could happen quite suddenly where you're just like, I just want to get a different house. I want to move. I want to go somewhere, right? But the main thing here is that throughout 2026, your integrity becomes your compass more than anything else. So you're really going to be listening to your belly all year, which is great. And that is what I have for you, my Sagittarius friends. I hope this was helpful in some way. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Capricorn. So 2026 is a year of inner security for you guys. With that Saturn and Neptune healing foundations in that fourth house of home, property, real estate, emotional security, your early experiences, your first family, it's going to be a lot of healing there. And Uranus changes your work rhythms in the sixth house. Some of you may be feeling that a bit already, but you're going to be feeling it even more come the end of April into the very beginning of May when he really settles into that Gemini energy. And Jupiter is going to be deepening your intimacy in that eighth house. Now, Jupiter in the eighth house can also mean expansion and the finances of a significant other or money coming in from someone else. It can indicate, I do want to say, this is that Jupiter has not been in your eighth house in 12 years. So I want you to think about, going back 12 years, right? Think about, because it can expand debt, it can expand taxes, but it can also expand money coming from other people. It can expand intimacy, shared resources, investments. It's actually quite good depending on your chart. Now, I don't know if you have retrogrades in your chart or how it's, how it's situated, but just in general, Jupiter in the eighth, is actually quite good for investing in the stock market. Very, very good. But great for deepening intimacy as well. Now, as far as your career goes, work routines evolve rapidly as Uranus moves through your sixth house, introducing some new schedules, new technologies, new methods. Something's changing. So you may change roles, you might restructure responsibilities or redefine productivity entirely. Now, some of you may even be starting before that, where you're doing this transfer before that, but it's going to be settled. And by the time we hit like the end of April, beginning of May, something very different is going to be hitting the scene here, guys. Now, Jupiter in the eighth does really favor shared financial ventures. So if you're doing anything like that, again, investments, collaborative income streams, anything like that, really, really good. And that Saturn and Neptune in the fourth remind you that professional success must support emotional stability and not undermine it. So career choices that you make now, they have to feel safe. Who cares what they sound like? Who cares what it seems like to anyone else? You want safety. You want safety, right? And when it comes to relationships, this idea of family and ancestral relationship patterns, like I was mentioning a moment ago, they surface, though, but they surface to be healed as that Saturn and Neptune move through the fourth. You're likely going to recognize how your early emotional conditioning has shaped adult attachment. And this isn't about blaming, it's not about doing any of that. You're finally getting, Chiron is finally getting out of there, right? His Chiron's been in Aquarius since 2020. Now he's going to be going into your fifth house. We'll talk about that in a second. But this is a year to build bonds that feel like home, especially within family structures, and not just duty, you know, really connecting. Maybe really connecting to those siblings that you haven't really been spending a lot of time with, or really you and your spouse trying to find each other again if you've felt a little distant, or developing a different kind of relationship with your children, could be very, very healing. It really can. And then we have that Chiron and Taurus going into the fifth house of children, falling in love, love affairs, romance, monetizable talents, having your own business. Well, let me tell you, all these things, any wound surrounding anything around those things, around joy, around creativity, romance, being loved without performance and just for who you are, all rise to the surface to be healed. And the healing comes through pleasure that is just pleasure. And it's not earned. It's not because you're doing anything. It's not because it's performative, right? Like because you're doing something, somebody loves you, whatever, whatever. It's not like that, right? It's really about kind of really, cleaning out the cobwebs. Like I always say, shaking the dead wood off the tree. Because what's your relationships that are going to be standing by the end of this year are really going to be very, very solid, right? And all year long, the asteroid Juno is going to be rewriting your love contracts and your deepest relationships, your deepest friendships. Because Juno's connected to marriage, but just this idea of deep commitment. And Juno's rewriting that, where it's like, okay, I'm not willing to, be seen as, the entity in this relationship who's always doing, doing, doing. And not that you do to receive, but sometimes it's nice to get either some recognition or a little bit of help along the way. And that's going to be balancing itself out over the year because Ceres is going to be burning very, very bright, that really nourishing the idea for you of play and affection. And you're not going to be able to ignore it. You want play, you want fun, you want affection. You don't want to just be the one who's always performing and always pushing, right? In the relationship, or always trying to push the friendship, always trying to push the connection. It's the idea of play and affection, right? Palace is very, very focused this year on maturing your creative energies. Very. This is such a good creative year for you, Capricorn. It just is. Regardless of what it is for you. Maybe it's writing, maybe it's dancing, art, teaching, whatever it is, right? We can take an artistic approach to practically anything. But the key here is Investa is making sure of this. Vesta is all about devotion to joy for you this year. So you want to feel happy, you want to have fun, because you have not been having enough fun. You just haven't. And I know. I don't have time to have fun. I can't have fun. I got to work. I got to do that. Going to feel a little different because guess what? I mean, your catchphrase for the year is you are allowed to enjoy life. You are allowed to. That's not just for other people, Capricorn, okay? Now, on February 17th, we have Aquarius solar eclipse in the second house. So this can absolutely indicate new income or a new value system. This can, I always want to just give a heads up. I'm not looking to be a negative Nancy. I'm just looking to be as honest as I can. Because the second house is also the general health of our organs. And a lot of times, eclipse energies, when it comes to Aquarius, it could bring some sort of like diagnoses, that's a little weird, a little out of the box. There is help for you there, but, some sort of situation can pop up there, especially anything connected to inflammation. And then we have March 3rd. That is the Virgo lunar eclipse in your ninth house. So what's getting closed there? What's getting eclipsed, right? The ninth house is the house of beliefs. It's the house of law, legalities, governance. So maybe some sort of legal situation is closing out. Maybe you're changing your stance on your politics or your religion or what it is that you're looking to study or just your moral code. And you're realizing that your view of life is very suddenly very different, and not so suddenly actually, but just very different than it was even just like a year ago, right? You could certainly be realizing that, with that March eclipse. And then August, we have two eclipses, one on the 12th in Leo in your eighth house. So this can indicate some sort of like financial or emotional merging. So maybe some of you are maybe you're getting married, or maybe you're getting divorced, or maybe there is a new business beginning, or there is some sort of, but I feel like for most of you, it's really going to be more of a, I'm getting more of a merging energy rather than like a disbursement energy, if that makes sense. So bringing things together, right, with another. So again, creating some sort of collaboration, whether it's within relationship or business, investing more, doing, uh, anything having to do with that. This could also be connected to inheritance, insurance payouts, something like that. Now, the 28th, the Pisces lunar, that's third house. That's going to be very much about mental release, right? Really releasing something in that third house. Wanting to just feel less stress, less anxious. There could be some sort of message that comes in. Always an eclipse in the third could always bring a message. Pisces does rule disease and disease, and third house does rule siblings and extended family. So there could be some sort of message that comes through as well when it comes to the end of August into September, having to do with a sibling as well. I just want to say that again. I don't look to be negative. I just want to be kind of complete in my interpretation here. But what you're doing this year, really, Capricorn, is you're building safety for yourself, but you're building it from the inside out, which is a good thing. All right, my friend. So that is what I have for you. I hope this was helpful in some way. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Aquarius. I hope you guys are doing great. Happy 2026. This is such a beautiful year for you for self-acceptance as well as visibility. So we have the Saturn and Neptune really refining communication in your third house, and Uranus sparks a lot of creativity in that fifth house, and Jupiter expands partnership in the seventh. So we have a lot of good pop and energy going on here. That Uranus energy in the fifth, that brings sudden reversals. We have sudden revolutionary energy there. So the fifth house is falling in love, love affairs, romance, children, monetizable talents, entrepreneurial energy. The third house is not only communication, it's your mental processing, it's the way you learn, it's the way you speak, it's your siblings, it's extended family. And then, of course, Jupiter expanding that energy in the seventh. That's lovely, especially if you're. I have one of my sons is Aquarius rising, and he's going to be getting married in November. Um, Great for also work contracts for that seventh house. Your energetic output at work. Jupiter is all about expanding these things. Very nice energy there. Now, speaking of work, when it comes to your career, your creative leadership really pops this year. It flourishes as that Uranus energy activates that fifth house. So innovation, originality, self-expression, these will become very central to your professional path this year. So this is a really powerful year for those of you who are artists, those of you, like I said, are entrepreneurs, educators, even visionaries who lead through creativity rather than through any kind of hierarchy, right? Now, the Jupiter energy in the seventh, it does support professional partnerships, any sort of work that's client-based and collaborative, anything that's a collaborative kind of situation, very successful energy there. Now, Pluto retrograde in Aquarius does prompt this deep reconsideration of your long-term goals, stripping away careers built on detachment or built on obligation and replacing them with some sort of more purpose-driven work, okay? Really feeling a lot more connected to your work. Now, in the area of relationships, Jupiter moving through that seventh does accelerate partnership growth. Relationships expand, whether it's emotionally, legally, or socially, right? Some of you formalize commitments, as I mentioned with one of my sons. Others attract significant new partners who reflect personal growth. Depends on what else is going on in your chart. But Juno does bring karmic clarity here. So connections feel faded, purposeful, and impossible to ignore. The lesson is in allowing yourself to be chosen without self-detachment or emotional distancing, because that is not going to fly this year. It's just not. Now, you do have Chiron going into your fourth house. It's the initial entering is June 19th to 20th, depending on where in the world you live, all the way to the middle of September. And that fourth house is home, property, real estate, very connected to your first family, people who you live with, also your emotional security. So Chiron activates here ancestral and emotional wounds around home safety and belonging. So healing may involve redefining family or creating new emotional foundations. Some of you may be moving in or moving out or having others, some sort of change in the family dynamic that could be going on there. Now, this is only a very like toe in the water kind of energy because it's pretty brief. It's from just, again, from June to September. So it's just over the summer. Then it's going to go back into Aries until next year. So, you're not going to have to worry about it for a while, but it will give you a little bit of a window, paying attention to the experiences that you have during that time. Now, as far as some of the other asteroids, Ganeth Chiron is no longer considered an asteroid. He's now a centaur. But as far as like the energy having to do with the other asteroids, Juno is very active in your energy. Juno is very connected to commitment to chosen family this year. So really being very committed to family this year, Aquarius, whether it's your children, whether it's significant other, your first family, or just all of them together. There is a deep commitment to family unit that's going to be going on this year. Now, Sirius is burning very, very bright in the sky. And I love this for you because there's a lot of emotional self-nourishment here. You're going to be so fed by your relationships this year, by your emotional space. It's actually very beautiful. And it's something that you guys could really use this year, I feel like. Not that you're not totally fine just doing you, being you, but this is such a nice addition. You're gonna be fed a lot more deeply emotionally. Now, Palace is being activated, and there's going to be more boundary clarity within family systems. Because even though we have this very deep commitment to chosen family, there's also at the same time going to have to be an establishment of boundaries. What's okay, what's not okay. I'm really looking at that, at boundaries within family. And I think, you know, whether it's parents, aunts and uncles, siblings, whatever it is, everybody's got to kind of stay in their own lane. And you might initially not really know what that even means. So there's going to be a lot more clarity as the year evolves. And you're going to be able to know more specifically what you can get from who and what you can't get from this one. You know what I mean, right? And then Vesta is being activated in the area of devotion to your inner security. Vesta is going to have you very devoted to that. And inner security is that little voice inside you saying, like, is this good for me? Am I okay? And that's a big blanket statement because it could be, do I have enough money? And do I like where I live? Is this whole situation okay for me? Right. And Vesta has you very devoted, though, to making choices that really speak to and feed that feeling of security. Right. Um, you have to understand that the home becomes your home this year becomes something that you build. It's not something that is already existing. So make your choices very wisely, right? Being very proactive. You're building a new home for yourself this year, okay? Now, as far as the eclipses go, Aquarius, February 17th, we have the first eclipse in your sign. It is a solar one. It's in your first house, and this is all about identity rebirth. Okay, so a little bit of a wild card house, obviously, is the first house can impact any part of your life. It's going to be rolling out for the next 6 months, having to do with your goals and gains in your future. So in that first house, it could bring a new job, what it is that you're doing, a new relationship. It could really bring anything like that. But there's this identity rebirth, right? And for a lot of you, you're actually finding yourselves again, if that makes sense. Because you want to keep in mind that you guys are ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is changing signs as well. So your ruler is very active in your energy. And so having been in Taurus, it's a very, very different kind of energy than going into Gemini, right? Having been in Taurus, it's been, a very more of a grounding energy, and now it's going into air and your air. So you're going to be getting back in touch with an old version of yourself, except it's going to be new and improved. Does that make sense? So you're going to be realizing that you haven't actually been living as authentically. And I'm not talking about like a one and done thing. This is a pretty long, like, oh, for the past 10 years, right? Where you're going to be finding a version of yourself that you haven't felt in quite a while, right? So very interesting there. Now, on March 3rd, we have the Virgo lunar eclipse in the eighth house. This is emotional and financial closure. So in March, a lot of you may be, making some decisions having to do with shared finances. Maybe you're paying off debt. Maybe you're paying taxes off. Um, you're, things get eclipsed out, but things get eclipsed in. So there could be something having to do with insurance payout, inheritance, shared resources, intimacy, anything like that. Now, the eighth house is also other, someone that you're in a relationship with. A Virgo does rule health. So the eclipse might bring some sort of message as well, having to do with the health of another. Um, it could also bring, a message about a pregnancy as well. So just be careful if that's not what we want. August 12th, we have the Leo solar eclipse in the seventh house. This could bring a new partnership. This could bring a new contract and work. This could bring a new doctor into your life because seventh houses are doctors as well. Or this could also just bring a new way of you doing your work on the day to day, right? Your forward facing work out to the world, like what you actually do. But a couple of weeks later, on the 28th, we have the Pisces lunar eclipse. This is about self-worth healing in that second house. Very more connected to that than anything else. But it could also be very healing for finances as well. But your sense of self and self-esteem, you know, you're going to feel, so because you're going to feel a lot more like an older version of yourself, there's a safety that comes with that. And being seen first of all, not being seen is something that you're rather comfortable with, even though you don't really like it. It's an interesting kind of thing. But being seen over the course of 2026 is going to become a lot safer for you than it's been, you know, um, for sure. So that is what I have for you guys. It's the general messages for 2026. I hope this was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for joining me, Aquarius, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Pisces. So I love this year for you because for you, this year is going to be all about a very grounded identity. And as the sign that represents the twin fish going in opposite directions, being ruled by Neptune, that groundedness is something that maybe eludes you from time to time, right? But 2026 is going to bring a lot more of a grounded energy. We have this Saturn and Neptune exiting your sign, ending years of dissolution. And Jupiter stabilizes work and health for you in the sixth house. And that Uranus is going to be disrupting some home and familial patterns in that fourth house energy, right? So let's break that down a little bit. That Saturn energy and Neptune, yes, they've been in there for what probably feels like forever. It's been a few years. Now it's going into, you know, just a more grounding space for you, just as Aries is going to be, Aries is fire, but what is Aries? Aries is fresh path, new perspective, determination, optimistic. Let's go. Let's do. Don't know how I'm going to do it, but I have the energy and I have the confidence to try to get it done. And that's something that you haven't really been feeling very strongly. And Saturn wants to do that, but Saturn doesn't play around. He wants to do things that are very connected to long-term stability. So it's not a flash in the pan. It's not like a Jupiterian type of energy. It's more like slow and steady wins the race, right? Let's get it going, in the right direction. And Jupiter is just going to be really lighting up that sixth house of your day-to-day work environment, your day-to-day responsibilities. Now, Jupiter expands whatever it's near. So I do have to say this. Look at your chart and look to see what is in your sixth house. Jupiter is going to expand that. So, for example, if you have your Chiron in the sixth house, so if you have your natal Chiron, or if you have Neptune in there, Jupiter can expand those. If you have Hygeia, the asteroid Hygeia in there, those can end up manifesting as like some sort of health situations that come up that you need to just look at. Nothing crazy to worry about, but just look at. You don't want to avoid that, okay? Just something to keep in mind there. Now, when it comes to your career, your work life stabilizes and it improves with Jupiter in there. It just does. It brings better routines, um, more supportive coworkers. Six houses are coworkers, growth through consistency. This is a great year for refining your skills, improving how you do things, rebuilding confidence through competence. Very nice energy there. And that Uranus in the fourth can bring changes to work from home dynamics as well, or family related career decisions, anything like that. But that Saturn and Neptune leaving your sign marks the end of vocational confusion, because a lot of you have probably been like, I'm doing this, but what the hell am I really doing? I don't really know what's the next 5 years of my life going to look like. you know, Clarity replaces that drift kind of energy. Small, steady efforts lead to lasting results, though, because remember, it's Saturn. Small and steady wins the race, okay? Now, as far as relationships go for you guys, as that Saturn Neptune leaves your energy, relationship dynamics stabilize. So you're no longer dissolving into partners or absorbing emotional responsibility that just isn't yours. It's just not yours. You're not taking on the stuff that's not yours. Boundaries strengthen very naturally. You're not even going to really have to do anything. You're just going to have to stay open to the energy. Juno, which is very connected to marriage and just commitment in general, it could even be to just our closest relationships. Juno supports relationships that are built on mutual respect and clear agreements, as well as emotional realism, realistically what's going on. This is a year that love becomes steady instead of sacrificial and supportive instead of confusing, right? The fog is finally really it's going to be lifting in that way. Now, Chiron in Taurus is going to be transiting in your third house starting on June 19th or 20th, depending on where in the world that you live, until the middle of September, and then going back into Aries until next year. But for that window of time, there could be wounds that come up around your voice, your expression, your ability to be heard, right? All of these old wounds to just be like recognized can surface, right? And healing comes through, though, unpacking that, speaking slowly and clearly and from the body and not from a space of apology or guilt or anything like that. Okay. Um, Chiron in Taurus also, it's the house of siblings and extended family. So just a little heads up, right? You could end up, the tricky part, I want to just give a tricky part of Chiron in the third house could be becoming the scapegoat for the family, you know, like your siblings, extended family, old friends, you're suddenly the scapegoat. Like somehow you become the problem and you're not going to have much patience for it. I will tell you that. But when it happens, just, call it what it is and address it as it is and slowly speak your piece. You want to really try to avoid flying off the handle, right? You do. Because the third house rules communication and our mental faculties, the way we think. And so if you fly off the handle very reactionary, if you think something isn't fair, that is not that to say that you're wrong, but you don't want to give them fodder to turn around and say, see, you're crazy. You have something wrong with you. You know what I mean? So when these things do come up, this is more like a to be forewarned is to be forearmed, right? Um, you know, step back. If somebody's being unfair to you, step back, process it, and make sure that you're responding instead of reacting. But as far as the other asteroids go, we do have Juno is going to be all about honest communication agreements. You're just going to be all about honesty this year. You really are. Ceres is shining such a beautiful bright light on you, just nourishing your voice that you're just speaking in general, right? Being heard, your ability to articulate clearly. Pallas is going to be supporting very clear mental frameworks for you. Shows all of this clarity is just going to be like, really nice. And Vesta is another one, kind of like Juno, but not really. But Vesta is really very, very devoted this year in your chart to truth in general, in conversations and communication, the idea of truth. So, truth, your voice, clarity, honesty, communication, your voice deserves space. Your voice deserves to be heard. There's no question about it. Now, as far as like the eclipse time, February 17th, we have the solar eclipse in Aquarius in your 12th house. This is very like the broom is coming out for some karmic cleansing in that 12th house. It's just coming out. Things that you have not been able to let go of, areas where you've been getting in your own way, things that you've been holding on to for too long that just are becoming necrotic in your subconscious. And there's no value added to holding on to these things. So really getting very honest with yourself about what needs to clear out and change for your future, for your ability, for the future. March 3rd brings the Virgo lunar eclipse in the seventh house, relationship culmination. Something comes to a head, especially things having to do around, shared responsibilities. Do you feel supported or not? These things are going to be coming to the forefront to be looked at. Also, same thing goes for any job that you're in. Do you feel supported? Are you getting what you need, right? Remember, Virgo, the eclipse is something eclipses out, something comes in, right? Now, for some of you, I do want to say, because it's Virgo and Virgo is connected to health, the seventh house could be connected to a marriage partner or a boss or a significant relationship. The eclipse could bring some sort of message because Virgo is ruled by Mercury. It's bring some sort of message about the health of a partner or the health of someone close to you. There could be some sort of culmination in that space. Yeah, and because it's ruled by because some houses ruled by Venus. It could even be one of your children. Some sort of culmination having to do with the health situation could manifest. Nothing to be scary of. I feel like it's going to be a good thing for you. Now we have August 12th, Leo solar eclipse in the sixth house. This could be a new workout regimen, some sort of new health plan, health path, a new job, new responsibilities. It could be a new business because it's in Leo. Leo rules entrepreneurship. You might be meeting a new romantic partner in the workplace. This could be a new health situation that's going on with one of your kids, but it's something that is manageable, that we have to adopt a plan and everything's going to be okay, kind of thing. Okay. Now, the August 28th Pisces lunar eclipse in the first house, obviously for you, it's an emotional rebirth. How it is that you feel about the path that you're on, how's it feel that you're, about the direction that you're going in. Something's getting eclipsed out, eclipsed in. This is the thing. When it's in the first house, it's the wild card house. So this can have to do with a relationship, it could have to do with a job, it could have to, there is some sort of eclipsing out to eclipse in, but because it's in Pisces, I feel like for a lot of you, it's just going to be behind the scenes, and you're just realizing that it's like a new day, and you're going in a new direction, and you're just going to be handling things very differently. And for some of you, this is going to be because the family dynamic is changing, the work dynamic is changing, the external dynamics are changing, and you're changing within them, right? So there's this emotional rebirth about how it is that you even feel about these things. But I do want to say that by the end of 2026, and I just want to note before I say the final note, there's going to be a lot of couple of steps forward, a few steps back from now until like the middle of October, end of October. November, December, so much calmer, so much calmer. But there's growth nonetheless. Everybody's finally going home. Everybody's going to be home where they need to be, you know. Finally, they're all Saturn in its new home, Neptune, Uranus. Jupiter's going to be changing. The nodes are going to be changing. Everybody's changing. I mean, the heavy hitters, the outer planets, and some of the personal planets that are a little slower. But yeah, but you're going to finally feel, Pisces, that you're standing on truly solid ground. Just really like solid ground. Everything's good. By the end of the year. So really nice energy there. Okay, my friends. So Pisces, I hope that was helpful for you. This is a couple of general messages for the year, and I'll see you guys next month for February's forecast.